Chapter 1669. Even after hearing the name Shang Huaming, the female cultivator's expression remained cold. She snorted and said, "Even you, a disciple of the Kai family of Luyang, know about my past. It seems that I have quite a reputation in the Kai family." Fairy Hongxia heard this and quickly said, "Master, the name of Kai Qin is not what you want. You are a golden core stage cultivator, the pride of the Kai family." This golden core stage cultivator of the Huanhua sect, who was also Fairy Hongxia's master, was also a member of the Kai family. Her name was Kai Qin. "Humph, my actions are in accordance with the great Tao. Why would I care about what others say?" Kai Qin sneered. "I have told you that if not for your good aptitude, I would not have taken you in, even if you were a disciple of the Kai family." "I know." Fairy Hongxia lowered her head and said, "Since you know about my relationship with Shang Huaming, you must know what happened, right?" "Yes, I know." Fairy Hongxia raised her head slightly, her jade-like face carrying a trace of admiration. Back then, for Shang Huaming's Xiao Yuehong, Master disregarded the clan leader's objections and broke out of the clan to marry Shang Huaming. After that, Xiao Yuehong became Shang Huaming's sect leader, and Master became Shang Huaming's sect leader's wife. A cold light flashed in Kai Qin's eyes and she said angrily, "Girl, is this what I asked you?" Fairy Hongxia's delicate body trembled, and she said softly, "Yes, but after Master went to Shang Huaming, her cultivation had been hovering in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Later, when Master was traveling in the Xiaoyu continent, she had an epiphany of the Tao of cultivation. Following that, she had the opportunity to join the Huanhua sect. In less than 100 years, she had cultivated from foundation establishment to golden core stage." "Humph, so you do know about this." Kai Qin's face turned cold and she scolded, "I was childish back then. I was trapped by love and rebelled against the family. Later on, my cultivation improved on Yellow Flower Ridge, but it was not the right path. How could I become a great person? Love has always been the enemy of cultivation. If I had not broken free from Shang Huaming's mundane affairs and cut off my love, how could I have achieved what I have today? This old woman's lesson is still vivid in my mind. Why do you insist on following this old woman's path?" As she spoke, Kai Qin's face turned green as she pointed her finger once more. "Ouch!" Fairy Hongxia cried out in pain as she crawled on the ground once more, rolling around in pain. "Who is it?" At this moment, Kai Qin raised her head and coldly shouted at the sky outside the valley. "Martial Uncle Kai, Junior Jiang Lihan greets Martial Uncle Kai." A voice came from outside the valley. "Umph." Kai Qin snorted coldly. With a wave of her hand, she removed the restrictive spell on Fairy Hongxia and scolded, "Yun Jiechong's master is here. Look at the trouble you have caused me. Kneel at the side." "Yes, your disciple understands." Fairy Hongxia did not dare to say anything else as she continued to kneel on the ground. Then, Kai Qin waved her white sleeves and a ray of light hit the sky outside the valley. With a soft sound, it seemed that some restrictive spells had been opened and 2 foundation establishment stage cultivators descended from the sky. The person in front was in the late stage of foundation establishment stage. He was dressed in green and was short in stature. The 2 tufts of beard at the corners of his mouth were very obvious, like the tail of a mouse. This person's face was dry and he looked even more bitter. Compared to Yun Jiechong, who was in the early stage of foundation establishment stage, he was like heaven and earth. However, this cultivator held his head high while Yun Jiechong lowered his head. Even though he was much taller than this cultivator, he still lowered his head and appeared to be very respectful. "Jiang Lihan, you have never been to my Peach Blossom Valley. What brings you here today?" Kai Qin did not go to greet them. She just stood there quietly and waited for the 2 to come closer before she asked, "Martial Uncle, this Peach Blossom Valley is your place of meditation. Everyone in the Huanhua sect knows that Martial Uncle pursues the way of the heavens. If not for something important, I would not dare to disturb Martial Uncle's meditation." Jiang Lihan lowered her voice and bowed. Then she turned her head and said, "Yun Jiechong, come and greet Martial Uncle Kai Qin." Junior Yun Jiechong greets Martial Uncle Kai. Yun Jiechong did not dare to be negligent. He tidied up his clothes and stopped looking at Fairy Hongxia. He then bowed respectfully. Well, get up. Kai-Chin flicked her sleeves and said, now you are also a foundation establishment stage cultivator. You are considered to have stepped into the door of cultivation. You are so young. I still have to congratulate you. I dare not. I am still far from junior sister Kai. This is all thanks to martial Uncle Kai's guidance. Yin Jiechong said in a low voice. Kai-Chin turned her head and looked at Fairy Hongxia, who was kneeling with her back facing her. She said, this girl is too stubborn. I am just punishing her. Even though she has the cultivation, she does not have the state of mind. She has taken the wrong path. How can she achieve great things? Yin Jiechong looked at his master and smiled apologetically. Junior sister was just confused for a moment. She must have her difficulties. Otherwise, she would not have done such a thing. Kai-Chin nodded. You are indeed a foundation establishment stage disciple. You are very knowledgeable. Then she changed her tone and asked, may I know why you have come to the Peach Blossom Valley today? Jiang Lihan took a step forward and clapped her hands. She took out a token and handed it to Kai-Chin. She smiled and said, I have received the order from the sect leader to discuss something with Senior Kai. Kai-Chin did not take the token. She only scanned it with her spiritual will and nodded. Go ahead. Yes. Jiang Lihan seemed to know Kai-Chin's temper. She kept the sect leader's token and looked at Fairy Hongxia. She said, what martial Uncle Kai's disciple did at the Feather Immortal meet today. Perhaps she had her difficulties. However, she really destroyed the momentum of our Huanhua sect. Our Huanhua sect's disciple could have won the Feather Immortal meet and obtained the extraterrestrial divine item. However, because of her, the Imperial Thunder sect gained the upper hand. Not only did she destroy the prestige of our Huanhua sect's disciple, but she also made our Huanhua sect a laughing stock. The sect leader has ordered that if we do not punish her severely, we will not be able to convince the public. We will not be able to set the rules of the Huanhua sect. Kai-Chin frowned and said coldly, how does the sect leader intend to deal with her? Are you going to expel her from the Huanhua sect? Are you going to abolish her cultivation? Of course not. Jiang Lihan smiled apologetically. Your disciple is very talented. After she entered the Huanhua sect with the Good Fate token, she reached the foundation establishment stage within a few years. Moreover, she has completed the Qi refinement stage. How can we abandon such a good disciple so easily? The sect leader has ordered that she is to go into seclusion in the Valley of Ice and reflect on her mistakes for 20 years. Hiss. Hearing this, Kai-Chin sucked in a breath of cold air. The astral winds from the frozen ice valley were bone-chilling. Not to mention 20 years, even a single day and night could turn a person into ice. The sect leader actually wants to punish Fairy Hongxia to go into seclusion in the Valley of Ice. She must be really angry. Fairy Hongxia, who was kneeling behind Kai-Chin, also turned pale when she heard this. I haven't even met the sect leader yet, and you've already brought the sect leader's order. This is really timely. Kai-Chin sneered. I'll bring my disciple to meet the sect leader now. Martial Ant, don't be anxious. Jiang Lihan quickly said. The sect leader has ordered that this order will not be changed. Kai-Chin was furious when she heard this. Martial Ant, don't be anxious. Jiang Lihan seemed to have a card up her sleeve. She smiled and said, I haven't finished relaying the sect leader's order. Speak. Kai-Chin said angrily. The sect leader has ordered that Kai Hongxia made a mistake first and should be punished severely. However, Kai Hongxia's talent is very good, and she is an elite disciple of the Huanhua sect. We must consider her future. Considering that she is young and ignorant and also has Yin Guichong's protection, the affection is commendable. In view of this, Yin Guichong and Kai Hongxia are to become a pair of dual cultivators. Firstly, both of them can encourage each other and achieve great Dao together. Secondly, we can eliminate the Huanhua sect from being a laughingstock in front of other sects. What? Kai-Chin was stunned when she heard this. She had never thought that the sect leader would punish her in this way. At the same time, Fairy Hongxia's eyes narrowed. Although she did not say anything, endless thoughts arose in her heart. Yin Guichong bowed and said, I've admired Junior Martial Sister Hongxia's character for a long time, and I've always treated Junior Martial Sister as my ideal partner for dual cultivation. However, I was afraid of delaying Junior Martial Sister's cultivation. Even if I could build my foundation, I wouldn't dare to disturb her. I don't know why I dared to tell Martial Aunt in advance. Fortunately, the sect leader empathized with my painstaking efforts and took this opportunity to eliminate the bad influence that Junior Sister has caused in the Feather Immortal Assembly. These were all suggested by the sect leader. I have never dared to use these to threaten Martial Aunt and Junior Sister. Seeing how gentle and elegant Yun Guicheng was, even Kai Qin was moved. At this moment, she had thought about many things. The sect leader's decision was appropriate. He could not only avoid Kai Hongxia's punishment, but also eliminate the bad influence. If news of this spread, the disciples of other sects would also know that Fairy Hongxia of the Huanhua sect did not hesitate to fall out with her lover in order to return the favor of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciple. Such a character was rare in the cultivation world. But Kai Qin naturally thought of what Fairy Hongxia had said and said to herself, "Sigh, this girl's character. I'm afraid it's not very possible." Immediately, Kai Qin turned her head and said, "Hongxia, you've heard the sect leader's order. Do you have a choice?" "Martial Aunt, you don't have to be so busy," Yin Guicheng hurriedly said with a smile. "The sect leader has given Junior Sister 10 days to consider. It's not too late to wait until Junior Sister has thought it through." "There's no need." Although Fairy Hongxia was kneeling, her voice was still cold. "Why do I need 10 days to consider such a thing? I'll give you an answer now. I will enter the Valley of Ice tomorrow." "Junior Sister," Yin Guicheng said anxiously, "the Valley of Ice is not a good place to be. You have to think carefully. Once you enter, you will either die or be injured. Dao cultivation, it's all for naught." Fairy Hongxia's back was facing Yin Guicheng. Her voice was unusually firm. "It's just the astral winds from the sky. Even if I die, I will walk my own path. I will never do anything that I don't want to do." "Junior Sister, why do you have to do this?" Yin Guicheng's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with a strange expression. He had not expected Fairy Hongxia to be so heartless to him. Xiao Hua, it must be Xiao Hua. Yin Guicheng's face was expressionless, but his heart was filled with malevolence. Chapter 1670. After sending off Jiang Lihan and Yin Jicheng, Kai Qin watched as Yin Jicheng's figure disappeared into the air. Without turning back, she said coldly, "So you've decided? This? If so, why did you do it in the first place?" "Master, a person should have a belief. If I didn't have this belief, I would have been a disciple. Since I have this belief, then I'll carry it out to the end." Since Fairy Hongxia had decided, she naturally said calmly, "If so, then I'll do it in the first place." "Hee, what a pity, what a joke." Kai Qin sneered. "Wasn't it the same when I rebelled against the Kai family? At that time, Xiao Hongyue, who killed Hua Ming, naturally knew about it. But what could he do in the future when I couldn't improve my cultivation? Wouldn't he still be helpless? And you're even better. You made this decision far away from the Imperial Thunder sect. Your punishment will definitely not spread to the Huanhua sect. That little bastard Xiao Hua. I'm afraid he won't know about it for 20 years. 20 years. Even though there's no concept of time in cultivation, the world changes too quickly. How can you know the changes in other people's minds? Even if you went through a near-death experience, how can Xiao Hua know about your suffering after coming out of the cold wind valley?" Fairy Hongxia bit her lips and stared at the ground, not saying a word. "Even though you don't like Yin Jicheng, since things have come to this, I think you should agree for now. Drag it out one day at a time." "No, master, I won't compromise." Fairy Hongxia flatly refused. A rare look of pity flashed through Kai Qin's eyes, but it was immediately replaced by coldness. "This old woman will ask you one last time. Everything you've experienced is what this old woman has experienced. Everything you're saying now is what this old woman has said to the patriarch before. This old woman's example will be your teacher for the future. The detours I've taken will be what you'll have to face in the future. Moreover, your situation is even more serious. The Cold Wind Valley," Hee, even I don't dare to enter it easily. Your near-death experience is considered light. Now that things had come to this, how could Fairy Hongxia not hesitate? If one were to talk about what she had done in the bright realm of the Tai Ching sect, it was true that she had feelings for Xiao Huaqing. But on the surface, it could also be understood as returning Xiao Hua's favor. After all, she had said those words through telepathy, and no one else knew about it. But what about Xiao Hua's thoughts? Xiao Hua didn't say anything. Fairy Hongxia's cleverness was to use an ambiguous attitude to make her intentions clear to Xiao Hua in front of everyone. Just as she said, if she didn't make it clear in the Hao realm, she really didn't know when she would be able to make it clear. Moreover, even if Xiao Hua had other thoughts, she naturally had a reason to explain it. However, it was precisely this kind of petty cleverness that caused her to fall into another embarrassing situation. Xiao Hua didn't make it clear to her, and Fairy Hongxia leisurely flew away to build her foundation. Xiao Hua didn't even have time to say a single word. Fairy Hongxia had expected the punishment from the Cleansing Flower sect, but she never expected it to be so severe. Of course, this was just a pretense. The real intention of the head of Huanhua sect was to let her practice dual cultivation with Yin Guichong to eliminate the sect's laughingstock. What should I do? What should I do? Fairy Hongxia hesitated at this crucial moment. At this moment, in the Kai family of Luyang, Xiao Hua's low cultivation level, clear eyes, and the calm expression he had when he handed over the storage bag to her surfaced in Fairy Hongxia's mind. That's right, when a level 4 Qi refining rogue cultivator faced that storage bag, it was like a beggar seeing a mountain of gold. He was actually able to keep his promise. Keeping her promise, it was easy to say, but how difficult was it to do? Especially when it came to fulfilling the promise of a dead person. This kind of person isn't worth my effort? Fairy Hongxia asked herself. Won't this kind of person have a bright future? Will this kind of person ignore everything I've done for him? A few rhetorical questions emerged from the bottom of her heart, and Fairy Hongxia had a plan in mind. However, Cold Wind Valley. That's right, Fairy Hongxia suddenly remembered Kai Qin's persuasion just now. Her tone seemed to be very strict at the start, but later on, she seemed to have loosened up. This final question actually had the intention of sounding her out. Taking a deep breath, Fairy Hongxia said indifferently, Master, this disciple has made up her mind. As a disciple of the Kai family, I will never regret my own choices. Even if this disciple's soul is blown away by the astral winds, I will never give in to the threats of others. Although Fairy Hongxia's tone was indifferent, it was resolute and without hesitation. Hearing this, Kai Qin's eyes flashed. Don't be stubborn. I'll return to the residence to cultivate. I'll give you 2 days. If you regret it, it won't be too late to look for me. Kai Qin did not say anything else and flew into the cave. Fairy Hongxia knelt in front of the cave for another 2 days. When Kai Qin came out again, Fairy Hongxia was still willing to enter Cold Wind Valley. Forget it. The stubbornness in the blood of the Kai family is not something that can be easily changed. Kai Qin stared at Fairy Hongxia for a long time and sighed. She clapped her hands and took out a simple phoenix hairpin from her storage bag. With a swing of her hand, she flew to Fairy Hongxia and whispered, Take a look. Fairy Hongxia furrowed her brows when she heard her master's voice transmission. However, she felt a sense of relief in her heart. She immersed her spirit sense into it, and her expression changed drastically. She blurted out, Ice Phoenix Cultivation Method? Kai Qin waved her hand. An array of light flashed past. A sound barrier was activated and sealed Fairy Hongxia's voice. You're already a foundation establishment cultivator, and you still don't know your place? I've thought highly of you for nothing. This disciple is too shocked. Please forgive me, Master. Fairy Hongxia's eyes turned quickly and she whispered back. This disciple has never thought that my Kai family's legendary mental cultivation method would be seen here. How can my Kai family be compared to an ordinary cultivation family? I don't want to tell you these things now. If fate brings us together, you'll know in the future. Kai Qin sneered. Use a few days to memorize this Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method. If there's anything you don't understand, ask me. This Cold Wind Valley is a place of death for others. For my Kai family's disciples? That might not be the case. Since you've chosen this path and you're of my Kai family's bloodline, then this old one can only let you try. If you succeed, TSK, not to mention Jindan, even Yuanying. Master Fairy Hongxia's face lit up with joy. Don't be happy too early. Kai Qin said coldly. This old one is only saying that it's possible. The possibility is extremely small. For so many years, no one in my Kai family has been able to awaken the thing in their bloodline. Even this old one can't do it. For you, there's only one possibility. If you don't succeed, only death awaits you. This disciple understands. Fairy Hongxia retracted her joy and nodded. Why is this Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method incomplete? Fairy Hongxia frowned after looking at it for a while. Silly girl. What kind of mental cultivation method is the Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method? How would you know? Wait until you've mastered it and save your life. When you have the chance, you can go to the Kai family's ancestral land to search for it. Kai Qin said with a rare smile. Kai family's ancestral land? Fairy Hongxia asked curiously. How would this disciple not know? What's the difference between knowing now and knowing in the future? If you can't get out of Cold Wind Valley, what's the use of knowing so much? Kai Qin said bluntly. This disciple understands. This disciple will never reveal it. Fairy Hongxia's expression turned cold as she transmitted her voice. You're on your own now. With a wave of her hand, Kai Qin cast a few spells and set up a restriction around Fairy Hongxia. She then flew into the cave, leaving Fairy Hongxia to comprehend the Kai family's Ice Phoenix mental cultivation method. In a quiet little mountain village, there weren't many villagers in the village. Every one of them looked simple and honest. In a small courtyard in the mountain village, a beautiful woman dressed in ordinary village clothes sat on a crooked bamboo chair with a cold expression. This woman was Zhang Yutong. However, Zhang Yutong's cultivation was sealed at this time. Apart from her threatening temperament and plain clothes, no one could tell that she was a sword cultivator. In front of her was Zhang Qingxiao dressed in camouflage. May I ask this sect leader, which sect are you from? Which sect is this? Zhang Yutong looked at the mysterious cultivator in front of her, and couldn't help but ask. Do you think this old man will answer you? Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said. You just stay here obediently and this old man won't do anything to you. You must be from the devil realm. Zhang Yutong suddenly said. Zhang Qingxiao was not surprised and said with a smile. Smart people don't live long. Miss Zhang, this old man advises you. It's better if you haven't seen anything. Haven't seen anything? You don't seem to understand us sword cultivators. Zhang Yutong sneered. If you're not from the devil realm, then you're a devil cultivator. You used your identity as a devil cultivator to kidnap I. And you used the identity of a Dao sect to do things. Why do you think I can't guess? Then tell me, what is this old man's plan? Zhang Qingxiao was interested and asked with a smile. Of course it's to provoke the conflict between us sword cultivators and the Dao sect. Let us fight each other, and you devil cultivators will reap the benefits. Zhang Yutong hit the nail on the head. Zhang Qingxiao pondered for a moment and nodded slightly. Miss Zhang's idea is similar to this old man's plan. Do you think we sword cultivators are brainless people? That will leave our nest for a small girl like me? What if we have the image of the flying sword message and your sister's statement? Plus we haven't heard from Miss Zhang for many years? Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said. Even if others don't care, what will Miss Zhang's twin sister do? After she does something, how will the Changbai sect or Taiqing sect react? If these two sects move, what will the sword cultivators do? Zhang Yutong knew that this was just speculation and a possibility, but she really didn't know what would happen in the future. Who would think that she would be kidnapped by a devil cultivator? Chapter 1671. Have you ever thought about the battle between sword cultivators and Taoist sects? What would happen to the millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain? Zhang Yutong asked anxiously. Miss Zhang, don't forget that I'm a demon cultivator. What does this have to do with me? Zhang Qingxiao laughed. The more chaotic your Xiaoyu continent is, the happier I'll be. Zhang Yutong pursed her lips and stared at Zhang Qingxiao. After a while she whispered, I wonder if Senior is provoking a battle for the revival of demon cultivators? You must know that Xiaoyu continent is a continent of humans. Demon cultivators will never become mainstream. Is that so? Zhang Qingxiao sneered and said, all the cultivation sects in the Xiaoyu continent cherish their own techniques and only pass on the cultivation techniques to their own disciples. Even the cultivation aristocratic families, although many of them rely on the cultivation sects and can't develop themselves very well. What about them? What's their attitude towards other rogue cultivators? They despise and cherish their own cultivation techniques. How can such a secluded cultivation bring prosperity to Taoist sects? Isn't this what you sword cultivators do? How many rogue cultivators are there in Xiaoyu continent without cultivation techniques and medicinal pills? Miss Zhang, do you know? In my heavenly demonic sect, no matter how high or low your cultivation base is, as long as you swear loyalty to my heavenly demonic sect, you'll immediately have cultivation techniques and medicinal pills to improve your cultivation base. Tell me, which part of us isn't inferior to the famous Taoist sects and sword cultivator sects? But Zhang Yutong said anxiously, Senior, you're teaching everyone regardless of their background. Won't you be letting more unscrupulous people grasp heaven-defying power? The entire continent will. Zhang Yutong still wanted to say chaos, but she suddenly remembered that heavenly demonic sect was originally a sect of demons. Why would they care about the stability of Xiaoyu continent? She couldn't help but stop. Miss Zhang, you seem to understand? Zhang Qingxiao sneered. Heavenly demonic sect opened the door of convenience for any cultivator who should be able to cultivate. It's in accordance with the will of heaven, giving others a glimmer of hope. If heavenly demonic sect doesn't prosper, the heavens won't tolerate it. It's just a small sect of demon cultivators. What great power can it have? Zhang Yutong sneered. Almighty? I don't need any almighty ability. Zhang Qingxiao seemed to be very talkative. He smiled and said, I only need the ability to help people build their foundation. Didn't you see Lu Weigang? I don't know how long he's been cultivating, and I don't know how long he'll be able to reach foundation establishment, but I only need to stretch out my hand to make him reach foundation establishment. Tell me, if other people, those cultivators who failed to reach the foundation establishment realm, knew that our heavenly devil sect had such a technique, would they join us? Zhang Yutong's expression suddenly changed. Wasn't that the case? What was the Feather Immortal Assembly for? Isn't it just to let cultivators build their foundation? But even so, only a dozen or so disciples had reached the foundation establishment stage. The other hundreds of disciples had come in vain. The younger disciples were still fine, as they still had a chance to reach the foundation establishment stage in the future. But what about the older disciples, or those who had already failed to reach the foundation establishment stage? If they knew that the heavenly demonic sect had such an opportunity, wouldn't they have rushed over like ducks? No matter how strange the Devil Path's cultivation method is, it is still a Devil Path's cultivation method. How can it be compared with our cultivation method? Zhang Yutong argued. The world only sees it as a failure. Who cares about the methods used? You wait at the Feather Immortal Assembly. Oh, I'm wrong. Miss Zhang, you came to Ming Kingdom for other matters. Those cultivators who were cruel in the Feather Immortal Assembly and fought for the chance to reach the foundation establishment stage, when they killed each other, did they ever think of doing it openly? Zhang Qingxiao retorted. This Zhang Yutong bit her lip and no longer spoke. Right now, her sword qi could only flow through her meridians, and she was unable to use her flying swords. Moreover, her divine sense was completely restricted and she could not release it at all. Although her storage bag was still tied to her waist, she had no way of knowing if Zhang Qingxiao had taken the things inside. Moreover, Zhang Qingxiao's words were harsh and she could not refute them. Devil Path's cultivation method will eventually flourish on the Dawn Rain continent. Miss Zhang, you'd better stay here and wait for the situation on the Dawn Rain continent. If the Dawn Rain continent is in chaos, you still have a chance to live. If my plan doesn't succeed, Zhang Qingxiao sneered. His figure flashed, and a few streaks of blood-red light flashed. Zhang Qingxiao's figure mysteriously disappeared, leaving only a few wisps of black smoke. And the black smoke also disappeared in a flash. Hiss! Zhang Yutong sucked in a breath of cold air. In the Huan country, she had seen millions of soul cultivators in Ming Mountain. However, she had never seen such a strange method of devil path. She couldn't help but be amazed. At this time, while she was worried about Zhang Yuha, she was also worried about Huan Sword Sect's reaction. Please don't fall into this devil path's trap. Zhang Yutong secretly prayed. However, she knew very well that if her sister Zhang Yuha returned to Huan Sword Sect, with Zhang Yuha's impatient character, Huan Sword Sect would definitely fall into her trap. Even if it was just based on the image of the flying sword message, Huan Sword Sect would definitely make a wrong judgment. Now, it all depended on sect leader Ouyang's judgment of the situation. Sigh, Zhang Yutong sighed. That faint tone was almost going to linger for 3 days. Just as Zhang Qingxiao said, for more than 10 days, no one came to disturb Zhang Yutong. After Zhang Yutong's initial irritation, she calmed down. The sword origin in her meridians could still flow. Although she couldn't activate the flying sword, she could still cultivate. Zhang Yutong only focused on her cultivation, hoping that she could break free from Zhang Qingxiao's shackles. Unfortunately, she didn't know what kind of demonic shackles Zhang Qingxiao used. Zhang Yutong cultivated for more than half a year, and her cultivation had increased by a lot. However, she still couldn't find the trick to shackle herself. She still couldn't break free from the shackles. Today, Zhang Yutong couldn't bear it any longer. She looked left and right at the relatively clean house. Looking at the tranquil courtyard outside the window, she stood up and stepped out of the house for the first time. Outside the house was a small courtyard of a farmer's house. The smell of cow dung entered her nose, causing Zhang Yutong to frown. Looking at the crooked jujube tree in the middle of the courtyard, Zhang Yutong sighed. This kind of place, why would cultivators come here? How would they be able to find her? Cough cough. Zhang Yutong coughed twice as her eyes darted around. She wanted to see if there were any cultivators watching her. However, the entire courtyard was silent. Only the sound of the wind and the smell of grass could be heard. Could it be that there's a restriction on the courtyard? Maybe the disciples of the heavenly demon sect let their guard down? Zhang Yutong thought to herself as she tried to walk to the entrance of the courtyard. To her surprise, the wooden door of the courtyard opened with a creak. Just like the door of a farmer's house, it didn't have any restriction on it. Bang bang bang. Zhang Yutong's heart skipped a beat. She felt that this was her chance to escape. So, without thinking, she quickly jumped out and roughly glanced at the direction of the small village. Then, she turned around and ran towards a slightly higher slope beside the small courtyard. The slope was on the left side of the small courtyard. Although the neighing of cows and horses and the quacking of chickens and ducks could be heard in the small village, there were no human voices. Zhang Yutong ran along the slope to the back of the courtyard. Just as she turned around a big locust tree, a warm and magnetic voice sounded from the top of the tree. Fellow Taoist Zhang? Where are you going? Sigh. Zhang Yutong sighed and stopped. She raised her head and saw Zhang Qingxiao in a white robe among the thick green leaves of the big locust tree. His deep eyes were looking at her with a smile. Looking at Zhang Qingxiao's handsome face and impressive temperament, Zhang Yutong couldn't help but sigh again. She raised her voice and said, "Greetings, fellow cultivator. I'm just here for some fresh air." Zhang Yutong's face turned red. "Oh, I see." Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said, "If that's the case, fellow Taoist Zhang, please do as you wish. However, it's best that you don't leave this small village. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer to the sect leader." "Fellow Taoist, you are so kind. I thank you." Zhang Yutong smiled and slowly walked up the slope. She looked up and saw that she was no longer on the grassland. A winding stream flowed by the side of the village. On the other side of the stream was a piece of farmland. At this time, the crops were ripe. Zhang Qingxiao saw that Zhang Yutong had stopped. He shrugged and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, you don't have any divine abilities. Where can you escape to? As long as I release my divine sense, won't it be easy to capture you? Fellow Taoist Zhang, you don't have to thank me." Zhang Yutong looked at the unfamiliar countryside scenery, and a strange light flashed in her eyes. After a moment, she cupped her hands and said, "Fellow Taoist, how should I address you?" Zhang Qingxiao pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "What a coincidence, I also have the surname Zhang. Hee, so it's fellow Taoist Zhang. Nice to meet you." Zhang Yutong looked around and whispered, "Since we're from the same family, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask." Fellow Taoist Zhang, don't tell me you want to ask how to escape?" Zhang Qingxiao asked curiously. "Do you think I'm that ignorant?" Zhang Yutong smiled and said, "I just want to know, why did fellow Taoist Zhang join the demon sect?" Zhang Qingxiao's eyes stared straight at Zhang Yutong, and Zhang Yutong's eyes didn't show any weakness. The two looked at each other for a moment and Zhang Qingxiao whispered, "Does this have anything to do with fellow Taoist Zhang?" Zhang Yutong finally moved her eyes away and looked at the village not far away. She whispered, "I see fellow Taoist Zhang's appearance is the first I've seen in my life. Although I can't release my divine sense, I can guess that a cultivator with fellow Taoist Zhang's appearance can't be bad. With fellow Taoist Zhang's aptitude, it's possible for you to join any cultivation sect. How could you fall to the demon sect?" Zhang Qingxiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She raised her eyebrows and a smile flashed across her handsome face. Could it be fellow Taoist Zhang wants to invite I to join the Xianjian sect? Zhang Yutong bit her lips and rolled her eyes. She nodded and said, "I don't want to bewitch you. If I really meet fellow Taoist Zhang, I will definitely invite you to join my Xianjian sect." Ha ha ha. Zhang Qingxiao raised her head and laughed. Her body moved up and down along with the branches. Zhang Yutong's face changed and she said angrily, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, you don't believe me?" Chapter 1672. When Zhang Qingxiao finally stopped laughing, he cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your high opinion. I'm afraid it's impossible for me to join the Xianjian sect." Why is that?" Zhang Yutong was secretly happy to hear Zhang Qingxiao's explanation. "Don't ask too much." Zhang Qingxiao waved his hand impatiently and said, "You should think about your own safety first. I's safety is not in my hands." Zhang Yutong sighed and said, "I would like to know more about the demonic sect. I also want to know why someone like Zhang Qingxiao joined the demonic sect. Is it that important to reach the foundation establishment stage?" Foundation establishment? Zhang Qingxiao glanced at Zhang Yutong, then looked at the mountains in the distance. The sun was setting in the west, and the orange-red clouds scattered over the mountains. After a while, Zhang Qingxiao said faintly, "How about foundation establishment? How about golden core? But it's all loneliness. How can it be compared to family? How can it be compared to reuniting with family? I didn't join the demonic sect for cultivation, but for an unforgettable blood feud. For this blood feud, I wouldn't hesitate to become a demon." Zhang Yutong's heart trembled when she saw Zhang Qingxiao's handsome face flash with a trace of ferocity. She pondered for a moment and said softly, "I didn't know. Please forgive me if I made you sad." Zhang Qingxiao stared into the distance as if he didn't hear anything. Zhang Yutong also looked at the setting sun in the distance. Seeing that half of the sun had disappeared, she asked again, "Zhang Qingxiao, if it's just for the blood feud, the Xianjian sect can help you." "Really?" Zhang Qingxiao turned his head slightly and looked at Zhang Yutong, who was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, "How can the Xianjian sect help I?" "Does Zhang Qingxiao know who the enemy is? If they have a name, then it's easy. You should know the flying swords of the sword cultivators. They are much better than the cultivators of the same level." Zhang Yutong was happy and whispered, "Haha, I understand Zhang Qingxiao's thoughts." Zhang Qingxiao smiled and said, "Unfortunately, I don't know who the enemy is. Sigh, this is going to be difficult." Zhang Yutong's face darkened as she said, "Then even if you join the heavenly demon sect, you won't be able to get your revenge." Zhang Qingxiao did not answer Zhang Yutong's question. Instead, she asked, "What if I know the name of the enemy? Your Xian sword sect dares to make a move?" "Of course. I can make the decision." Zhang Yutong puffed up her chest, making it even more perky. "What is the cultivation level of your sect leader?" Zhang Qingxiao asked with a smile. Second grade sword transformation stage. It's equivalent to the middle nascent soul stage of the Taoist sect. Zhang Yutong said. Isn't that enough to avenge you? Ha ha ha, fellow Taoist Zhang. Zhang Qingxiao clapped his hands and said. I appreciate fellow Taoist Zhang's kind intentions. However, do you think that your sect leader will help you? Furthermore, at this point, Zhang Qingxiao's tone became somewhat gloomy. Furthermore, I's enemies are two nascent soul stage cultivators. Do you think that your Xian sword sect will take action? Ah? Zhang Yutong never thought that Zhang Qingxiao's enemies would be nascent soul stage cultivators. She couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. That's right, a nascent soul stage cultivator isn't just a problem for a single cultivator. It's a problem for an entire sect. Xian sword sect can't possibly face two nascent soul stage cultivators for Zhang Qingxiao. Even if it's for me, I have to face two nascent soul stage cultivators and two sects. Fellow Taoist Zhang, now do you understand why I joined the Heavenly Demon sect? The corners of Zhang Qingxiao's lips curled into a smile. It was indescribably desolate, and even the residual red in the sky could not compare to it. Only the sect master of the Heavenly Demon sect would have such courage to help this poor Taoist avenge my debt of gratitude. Zhang Yutong's heart was also sad. She knew that the cultivator in front of her might not be a nascent soul stage cultivator or a golden core stage cultivator, but the hatred in his heart was boundless. He swore to kill even a nascent soul stage cultivator. This kind of man who did not care about his own situation, and whether or not he had joined the Heavenly Demon sect. She was afraid that she could not simply see him as a Heavenly Demon sect cultivator. Fellow Taoist Zhang, can you tell I a little bit? Zhang Yutong asked tentatively. Perhaps there are other better ways to solve your problem? Other ways? Zhang Qingxiao's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. She shook her head and said, Fellow Taoist Zhang, it's already late. You should go back early. Although my sect leader is not here, there are other disciples watching over me. If they see me, I will be punished. Seeing that Zhang Qingxiao was avoiding the topic, Zhang Yutong could only smile and say, I was just curious. At the same time, I was afraid that fellow Taoists would be blinded by hatred and affect your cultivation. Since fellow Taoist does not want to say more, then I will go back. After saying that, she turned around and went down the hill. She went back to the small courtyard. Zhang Qingxiao glanced at Zhang Yutong's back, and turned to look at the twilight in the sky. She muttered to herself, a blood feud. If it could be easily avenged, why would it be called a blood feud? Then, a trace of bitterness appeared on her face. As far as she knew, Duan Yuming and Wang Xuyao from the Xianjian sect had entered Ming Kingdom and found the Taiqing sect. But, her plan had not been fully realized. The Taiqing sect and the Changbai sect had sent disciples to search for Zhang Yutong. Even the disciples of the various sects who participated in the Feather Immortal Gathering were investigated. All the sects wanted to find Lu Weigong's whereabouts through clues to prove that the Taoist sect had nothing to do with this matter. As for the Xianjian sect, they did not send any other disciples to question her. Where did Zhang Yuha go? Did she encounter any danger? Zhang Qingxiao asked herself again. If she can go back according to my plan, she will definitely be able to stir up trouble. Without this girl, the situation is not good enough. Xiaohua, my good junior brother. Second brother has already excluded you from the list. But I didn't expect you to reach the 12th layer in just a few years. What secrets do you have? Could it be that Shang Huoming's annihilation has something to do with you? The Imperial Thunder sect is a famous sect, but with your talent, how could you reach the late stage of the Qi refinement realm so easily? Zhang Qingxiao's face showed a trace of anger again. If Master's death has anything to do with you, don't blame me for being ruthless. 3 nascent soul cultivators have to be killed, and you a Qi refinement realm disciple. I will also kill you. Among the 3 peaks of the Taiqing sect, on the human peak, the rightmost peak, someone also mentioned Xiao Hua's name in a cave. This was a very spacious cave. On the cloud platform, De Ming frowned, but his eyes were closed and his face was very ugly. There was a praying mat 10 feet in front of him. Rinju's face was also gloomy. Although her eyes were not closed, Her brows were also tightly knitted. In the corner of the cave, thin smoke floated from an incense burner. The smoke went straight into the air and didn't dissipate for a long time. In the corner opposite the incense burner, a lifelike puppet was holding a jade plate in its hand. It stood there blankly, its black eyes were like black jade, without a trace of life. Deming, martial uncle. Renju pondered for a moment and said, "It has been several months since the messenger of the Xian Sword sect left our Taiqing sect. According to the news from the Changbai sect, the image in the flying sword message was Lu Weigang. But Lu Weigang was driven out of the Hao realm by our Taiqing sect, and he didn't return to the Changbai sect." Deming opened his eyes slightly and looked at Renju, saying in a low voice, "Renju, do you still need to say this? If Lu Weigang returned to the Changbai sect, how could he kill two sword cultivators? Besides, he is only a 12th layer disciple, not even a foundation-building disciple. How could he be a match for two sword cultivators at the middle stage of the foundation-building realm? Then, I don't understand. Who in the 3 cultivation kingdoms has the strength? Oh no, who has the guts to kill two sword cultivators from afar? This is obviously a conflict between the sword cultivators and the Taoist sect." Renju shook her head slightly. "Let the Changbai sect have a headache. The Feather Immortal Conference hosted by our Taiqing sect has ended. We have done what we should do. We have received the two sword cultivators with great hospitality, and exchanged what we should with them. The messenger of the Xian Sword sect can't find any fault with it." Deming frowned. "Speaking of the conflict between the two sects, it has been going on since ancient times. But for the past few hundred years, the millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain have restrained the sword cultivators. Our Taoist sect has invested a lot in the demon-resisting valley, so there hasn't been a big mess. Since the demon-resisting valley will be mentioned after 1,000 years, how can our Taoist sect be afraid of the sword cultivators?" "Martial uncle, you are right." Renju nodded and said, "Sword cultivators are always arrogant and unreasonable. This time, they sent a messenger to win the argument. I'm afraid they have no time to care about us. Our Taoist sect doesn't lack etiquette. Our Taiqing sect has sent disciples to contact other sects and sects to confirm that they have nothing to do with the disappearance of the two sword cultivators. Who will be afraid of the sword cultivators? Look, the two sword cultivators of the 2nd grade of the illusory sword realm have been searching the Dawn Rain continent for more than a year. But they didn't find anything either, right? He, the leader of the Changbai sect, Yunmengzi, is furious. He has to face the questioning of the Xian Sword sect and send disciples to interrogate and search for Lu Weigang's whereabouts. As long as Lu Weigang is not found, the Changbai sect is afraid that the Xian Sword sect will come to their door." Deming smiled. "Although the two of us managed to find the whereabouts of the Feather Immortal Conference, we didn't make any mistakes and were rewarded by the leader. This is a small regret, and the leader has no intention to ask about it." Hearing this, Renju's thoughts moved. She scanned with her divine sense and said in a low voice, "There are no mistakes, but there are some accidents." "Yes." Deming nodded. "The sword embryo was taken away by Xiao Hua of the Imperial Thunder sect. This is really unexpected." "That's not all," Renju said as she patted her storage bag and took out a diamond-shaped crystal. "An illusion formation image?" Deming was dazed. Could it be? There are traces of Lu Weigang inside? Didn't the messenger of the Xian Sword sect already see it? "Martial uncle, don't be impatient." Renju patted her hand and a picture scroll appeared in the air. It was the battle between Xiao Hua and the Taiqing sect disciple, Yifang Yuan. Chapter 1673. After watching the battle between Xiao Hua and Yifang Yuan, Deming's eyes flashed with a strange light. He nodded slightly and said, "This Xiao Hua has a merciful heart. His control of strength is also very flexible. He can actually stop the force of 10,000 kilograms at the most critical moment. Only this kind of realm where a cultivator is at death's door can give birth to a trace of life, and touch a trace of hope of foundation establishment in cultivation. If there was only one, I can also see it as occasional. But the two people who fought Xiao Hua were both foundation establishment cultivators. This is a problem." Renju put away the diamond-shaped crystal and said in a low voice, Disciple also suspected that this Xiao Hua is a person with great ability. How is that possible? Deming said in surprise. Of course, when Xiao Hua raised the sword embryo, I clearly saw that he was at the initial stage of Qi refinement realm. Could it be he can deceive foundation establishment and even golden core cultivators? Renju smiled and said, Disciple also thought so before. However, the disciple I sent to Imperial Thunder Sect to ask Zhen Qing about sword cultivation brought back news that Xiao Hua started to build his foundation not long after he returned to Imperial Thunder Sect. Hearing about building his foundation, Deming nodded slightly, but Renju's words made him stunned. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua failed to build his foundation. How is that possible? Deming unexpectedly said. How is that possible for the second time? This Qi refinement disciple is a genius. He was born with divine strength and can easily help others build their foundation. How could he fail to build his foundation? Renju smiled bitterly. How could this matter be wrong? Xiao Hua indeed failed to build his foundation and became the laughingstock of Imperial Thunder Sect. Sai, heaven is playing with people. Deming shook his head. Heaven is the most playful. Presumably, Xiao Hua himself didn't think he couldn't build his foundation, right? Right, Deming suddenly remembered and said in a low voice. The matter of Xiao Hua helping others build their foundation must be kept a secret for the time being. Disciple knows. Renju smiled. Xiao Hua isn't our Tai Ching sect's disciple. How can disciple show off this matter? Xiao Hua probably doesn't even know his own value. If Imperial Thunder Sect finds out, who knows how many foundation establishment disciples they can create? Deming was a bit confused. Renju naturally knew what Deming was thinking. She hurriedly transmitted her voice to him. I've also asked my disciples to try this method. How is it? One of them was killed by the hammer. Renju smiled bitterly and said. The other two didn't have any effect. AI foundation establishment. It's not that simple. Deming heaved a long sigh. Perhaps this Xiao Hua also encountered it. What does He Fongyuan say? He Fongyuan himself was also confused. He only felt an endless force pressing down on his body. He suddenly woke up and his true qi began to condense. Renju naturally asked He Fongyuan and said. He also didn't know if it was Xiao Hua's intention or not. Even golden core cultivators like us can't do anything about it. How can an aura refining disciple like him do anything about it? I'm not looking down on aura refining cultivators. Deming shook his head. This matter was indeed inconceivable. If someone could control the foundation establishment, then how could there be so few foundation establishment cultivators? This disciple has the same thoughts. Renju smiled apologetically and said, Unfortunately, these images can't be recorded. Moreover, there's no image of Changbai Sect's Fan Tong and Xiao Hua's battle, otherwise we could have looked at it carefully. We still have to pay attention to Imperial Thunder Sect's Xiao Hua. Although he has nothing to do with sword cultivation, if there's really a possibility, as long as there's a possibility that he's related to foundation establishment, we can't relax, Deming said. Yes, I understand. Renju nodded. Imperial Thunder Sect doesn't know Xiao Hua's importance, and Xiao Hua killed Fan Tong. Changbai Sect's Taoist Jingru probably won't let this matter go. At that time, our Tai Ching sect might have a chance. A aura refining disciple, if we give him some benefits and he can have a place to settle down, he'll probably obediently join our Tai Ching sect, right? And if we find a golden core disciple to be his master, how could he not be happy? If he can really help our Tai Ching sect's aura refining disciple reach foundation establishment as shown in the illusion, that would be a great merit. Deming smiled. Then his brows relaxed and he closed his eyes again. Renju then transmitted her voice to him. No one knew what they were talking about. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, several years had passed. In the three kingdoms of cultivation, many strange things had happened in the kingdom of Shi, kingdom of Meng, and kingdom of Lian. No one knew how many powerful cultivators had fallen. During the Feather Immortal Gathering, the two missing sword cultivators had not been forgotten yet, but very few people had mentioned them. Even Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao had searched many places and forced the Changbai sect into a state of chaos. However, they only had the images of flying swords. Lu Weigang seemed to have disappeared even more cleanly than the two sword cultivators. Not a single trace of him could be found. Furthermore, the Xianjian sect was restrained by millions of soul cultivators in Meng Mountain, and had no time to be distracted. Gradually, the Changbai sect slacked off and ignored Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao. The two sword cultivators had no choice but to slowly search in the three kingdoms of cultivation. Furthermore, the Xiaoyu continent was vast. With their strength, they wouldn't be able to travel all over it even after several decades. One day, in the myriad Thunder Valley, Helplessness sat on a jade chair with a gloomy face and asked Xiangyang coldly, "Where's that little bastard? Is he still fooling around in the book pavilions of the lightning palaces?" Xiangyang didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly stood up and bowed. "Yes, Master knows. Little junior brother has been cultivating diligently these past few years in order to build his foundation. He hasn't slacked off." Hasn't slacked off? Then he's not doing his job properly. Helplessly, he slapped the jade chair and said angrily, "What did you do after you failed to build your foundation? How did this little brat do it? It's not like I haven't built my foundation before. Can't I tell with one look?" Embarrassed, Xiangyang said, "Little junior brother is different from me, different my ass." Helplessly, he scolded, "That little bastard isn't even as good as you. At least you built your foundation after 50 years. That little bastard probably can't even build his foundation after 500 years. Why was I late that year? That Wang Yinxiao was chosen by me first. Why did I choose a disciple with a loose cultivator background? He really made me lose all my face." "Husband." Beside him, Zhuo Minghui asked curiously, "After you scolded Xiaohua last time, didn't you say you didn't want to see him anymore? You don't want to worry about him anymore? Why did you suddenly mention Xiaohua today?" You think I was willing to see him last time? If Martial Uncle Zhenqing didn't have something to ask him, I wouldn't see that little bastard." Helplessly, he snorted and said, "Just now, Xinyu sent me a message. His disciple, Wang Yunxiao, has also built his foundation." "Ah, that? The disciple that Master originally fancied?" Xiangyang exclaimed. Xiangyang didn't open his mouth, but once he did, Helplessly shouted angrily, "That's right, it's all my bad luck." Just as Helplessly was about to get angry, a thunder sound transmitting talisman flew in from outside the cave. Helplessly unhappily patted the talisman and heard Zhenqing's voice. "Martial nephew Helplessly, where is Xiaohua now? Tell him to come see me." Helplessly, he crushed the sound transmitting talisman, and his expression didn't change. Martial Uncle Zhenqing really cares about that little bastard. Last time, I heard she even personally comforted him. Soon after, he waved his hand and another thunder sound transmitting talisman was sent out. Obviously, he wanted to find Xiaohua. Seeing that his master was sending a sound transmitting talisman, Xiangyang hurriedly wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. The thunder sound transmitting talisman flew out of Helplessly's hand and circled around the cave before flying back. Seeing that Helplessly was about to change his expression again, Xiangyang hurriedly went forward and said, "Master, I don't know which Thunder Palace's library little junior martial brother is in. There are restrictions in there. I'm afraid sound transmitting talismans won't work. It's better for me to go find him personally." Helplessly, in his rage, came to a realization. If he could find Xiaohua, why would Zhenqing send him a sound transmitting talisman? "Go, hurry up and let that little bastard escape from the pile of old books. He can't build his foundation, even if he hides there for 500 years. Seeing that the 5-year foundation establishment experiential learning is about to begin, let him prepare and go out with the other disciples." Helplessly sighing, he waved his sleeves and let Xiangyang go out. Xiangyang and Yan Qinglian left the cave. Yan Qinglian took out several invisibility talismans from her storage pouch and handed them to Xiangyang. "Husband, bring these invisibility talismans to little junior martial brother. The foundation establishment experiential learning is different from other things. With the help of these invisibility talismans, his chances of success will increase a bit." "Okay." Xiangyang took them and put them into his storage pouch. He said in a low voice, Half a year ago, little junior Marshall brother said he wanted to go to the Heavenly Thunder Palace's library. I wonder if he's there now. AI, I don't know what's wrong with little junior Marshall brother. What's there to see in the library? He's already read it once before. This time he spent 5 years reading it again. Yan Qinglian also sighed. Using these 5 years to cultivate, maybe. Xiang Yang waved his hand to stop Yan Qinglian from saying anything more. He himself flew up and used the hibernating thunder escape to fly towards the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Xiang Yang's realm had stepped into the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. He had also gradually mastered the hibernating thunder evasion. Even though it was still a lot worse than Xiaohua's hibernating thunder evasion from 5 years ago, he had, after all, started cultivating the thunder evasion technique. But what about Xiaohua 5 years later? Right now he was in the Heavenly Thunder Palace's star-like library. He was sending a jade slip into the void. Afterwards, he sat down cross-legged and recalled in detail. Only after a long while did he open his eyes. He let out a long breath and said to himself, "The Grand Universe Shifting Command." That command arrow was actually the incomplete Grand Universe Shifting Command. If I hadn't read the records of the 8 Great Thunder Palaces, how would I have been able to deduce it? The records of the 8 Great Thunder Palaces' ancient books are also strange. Cultivation techniques and the like are divided into realms, but travel notes, strange stories and the like are not divided into realms. Anyone who can enter the library can read it. But I have read these ancient books for 5 years, and actually, I haven't met a single disciple who came to look at them. Could it be that they don't know that reading an ancient book is equivalent to traveling once? AI, Xiaohua also didn't feel any pain. 5 years, how good would it be to use it to cultivate? Who would waste 5 years of time to read some ancient book for no reason? Even when Zhen Xie and the others examined the ruins of the Buddhist sect, they were also cultivating. After all, they didn't have fire essence flame crystals, right? Chapter 1674. With the fire marrow flame crystal, Xiaohua's cultivation method and speed were naturally different from others. After he failed to build his foundation, he relied on the prairie fire cultivation method to enter the 13th layer of the aura refining realm that no one had ever cultivated before. After only 200 or so days, he broke through another bottleneck and entered the so-called 14th layer of the aura refining realm. Afterwards, he used more than a year to refine the last flame in his meridians and reached the bottleneck of the 15th layer of the aura refining realm. Afterwards, he returned to the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden and used the second fire marrow flame crystal to break through to the 15th layer of the aura refining realm. Only then did he leave the medicinal garden and finish reading the remaining ancient books in the Thunder Palace, while raising his cultivation level to the late stage of the 15th layer of the aura refining realm. He believed that in less than a year, he would be able to step foot into the 16th layer of the aura refining realm. However, as his cultivation level increased, the refining speed of the fire marrow flame crystal slowed down. However, Xiaohua didn't mind. He knew that his real refining speed didn't slow down at all. It was just that after his cultivation level increased, it would be difficult to advance further. From the 10th layer of the aura refining realm to the 11th layer of the aura refining realm, it would definitely take longer than from the 11th layer to the 12th layer of the aura refining realm. Therefore, he could peacefully enjoy the joy of cultivation. Naturally, Xiaohua was still in the aura refining realm, so he definitely didn't have any spiritual pressure. Moreover, Xiaohua had cultivated a concealment technique, so he only needed to disguise himself slightly. From the outside, his cultivation level was no different from an ordinary late-stage 12th layer disciple. As for his true cultivation level, could a cultivator who had cultivated more than half of a foundation building technique be compared to an aura refining realm cultivator? If he wanted to compare, he could only compare with a foundation building cultivator. Xiaohua put the jade slip back, looked around, and grabbed it from somewhere in the sea of stars. Afterwards, his figure flew into the distance. When he arrived at a place covered in mist, he pointed his finger again. The mist was diluted a lot, revealing a lot of rhombus-shaped brilliance. These rhombus-shaped brilliances flashed in 2 colors, dark green and earthy yellow. Xiaohua swept his gaze over them and flew towards one of the earthy yellow brilliances. Strangely, as Xiaohua flew closer to the mist, his whole body gradually shrank. When he entered the mist, he was almost as small as a mung bean. The earthy yellow brilliance in front of him had already enlarged. It was a quiet room. Xiaohua skillfully formed a seal and entered the quiet room. Soon after, he closed the quiet room. Xiaohua looked at it for a moment and suddenly, joy appeared on his face. He slapped his forehead and a sword pellet the size of a chicken egg appeared in his hand. At this time, the sword pellet was different from a few years ago. When Xiaohua obtained the sword pellet, the surface of the oval sword pellet was bumpy. There were many cracks, and the cracks were quite deep. But at this moment, the entire sword pellet surface was smooth and tidy. All the cracks had disappeared, and there was a faint brilliance flowing on the sword pellet. It looked very lively. Strange. I thought the smallest sword pellet would be the easiest to repair, but I didn't expect the largest sword pellet to be repaired first. Xiaohua's Buddhist consciousness swept across the Buddha heart of the Buddha relic, and he was a little surprised. Furthermore, the degree of repair of the other 8 sword pellets is also different. It seems that the smaller the sword pellets, the harder it is to repair. The smallest sword pellet had a crack that went deep into the pellet's heart. It didn't change at all. Could it be that the smaller this sword orb is, the more powerful it is? Xiaohua frowned slightly and looked at the sword pellet in his hand that was emitting a mixture of blood red and azure light. He did his best to immerse his Buddhist consciousness into it. In these 5 years, Xiaohua had also been cultivating the exquisite leaf scripture. His Buddhist consciousness had naturally improved by leaps and bounds. However, the cultivation of Buddhist consciousness was too difficult. This improvement was truly insignificant compared to the Tao sect realm. The azure and red sword pellet spun around in Xiaohua's hand. In his Buddhist consciousness, the sword pellet's quality was meticulous and there were countless strange runes inside. However, these runes were very dull and didn't have the liveliness of the spirit sword, described in the sword sect's secret books. Alas, this flying sword is still inferior. Xiaohua withdrew his Buddhist consciousness and threw the sword pellet into the air. He sighed in his heart. If I really succeed in nurturing a sword, it's like the birth of a life. The sword spirit inside is just born. Even if it's not as lively as a living being, it still has the fluctuations of a living being. This sword pellet has already reached the stage of nurturing a sword, but it doesn't have the slightest bit of liveliness. According to sword cultivators, it should be stillborn. Forget it. I'm not a sword cultivator in the first place. It's already enough to have a flying sword. Using this flying sword together with the Tao sect's sword controlling technique can also be considered average. Xiaohua thought and extended his finger. He didn't seem to make any movements, but the black iron needle suddenly appeared in midair before his eyes. Then it suddenly pierced toward Xiaohua's extended finger. Unfortunately, it was like piercing black iron of the same quality. The black iron needle only pierced a little and couldn't pierce any further. Damn it! Xiaohua scolded jokingly. This great strength Vajra technique is strange. My body originally had rough skin and thick flesh, but now I can't even drip a drop of blood. And nurturing a sword requires a cultivator's blood essence. This is making things difficult for me. While joking and scolding, Xiaohua twisted his hand and urged his magic power. The black iron needle flashed with a cold light, then slowly pierced into Xiaohua's finger. Immediately after, the black iron needle was pulled out, and a drop of blood-red blood floated in midair. Xiaohua slightly closed his eyes and muttered something. Different spells entered the drop of blood in his hands. The drop of blood started to boil, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a blood membrane the size of a chicken egg. Quick! Xiaohua fiercely opened his eyes and pointed his finger. A golden brilliance flashed on the blood membrane, and flew towards the sword pellet at the side. The blood membrane wrapped around the sword pellet and quickly seeped into it. Following the disappearance of the blood membrane, the sword pellet started to gradually vibrate up and down. Moreover, the vibrations became more and more intense. A trace of apprehension flashed through Xiaohua's eyes. He knew that this was the beginning of his blood essence controlling the sword pellet. If the sword pellet wasn't completely repaired, Or if his blood essence couldn't control the sword pellet, then the flying sword couldn't be nurtured. Moreover, looking at the way the sword pellet was vibrating up and down, he was afraid that there were traces of the original owner nurturing the sword inside. After a moment, there was another buzzing sound, and the sword pellet suddenly stopped. Soon after, a drop of tainted blood was forced out. As soon as the tainted blood flew out of the sword pellet, it immediately rushed toward Xiaohua. Ouch! Xiaohua was shocked. His Buddhist sense swept over, and a vicious aura came from the tainted blood. It felt very powerful. Without hesitation, Xiaohua dodged and immediately called Goldie out from the space. As soon as Goldie came out of the space, its nose twitched, and its eyes were filled with joy. Goldie's nose twitched again, and a white brilliance came out of Goldie's nose, covering the tainted blood. The tainted blood seemed to know the power of the white light, and hurriedly tried to change direction. Unfortunately, under the powerful suction of the white light, the tainted blood couldn't move at all. In the blink of an eye, a strange shadow was pulled out from the tainted blood by the white light. Before Xiaohua could see it clearly, it was sucked into Goldie's nose. After eating the shadow, Goldie's face showed a trace of satisfaction. It actually shook its tail and stretched out its claws, looking like it was stretching its waist. After Xiaohua sent Goldie into the space, Goldie lay down as if it had fallen asleep, just like when it first swallowed Qin Mingwei's primordial spirit. That was close. Xiaohua wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and rejoiced. Fortunately, I've read so many ancient books these past few years, and know that these are all imprints related to the primordial spirit. Only special divine abilities or strange beasts like Goldie can restrain them. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome. But I'm still inexperienced. I started nurturing the sword without making any preparations. This isn't a new sword pellet, but someone else used it before, and it's even damaged. This shadow in the tainted blood. I wonder if it was originally a sword cultivator, or a soul cultivator injured by this sword cultivator's flying sword. Xiaohua began to reflect on his own shortcomings. Soon after, he waved his hand, and a wisp of pure, jade-green samadhi true fire was emitted from his hand. It burned the blood that had stopped in midair and disappeared without a trace. Looking at the sword pellet that was emitting a buzzing sound, the sound was extremely ear-piercing. In the sound, two faint wings seemed to unfold on both sides of the sword pellet, but when Xiaohua wanted to take a closer look, the wings disappeared. Moreover, the entire sword pellet was like a melted candle, gradually softening into a palm-sized sword shape. Following the formation of the flying sword, Xiaohua's eyes showed joy. He saw that the new flying sword was green and red, and a baleful aura and a sharp aura intertwined together. It was far more powerful than the flying sword Xiaohua had seen before. What made Xiaohua even happier was that once this flying sword was born, he felt a kind of free and easy control from the bottom of his heart, a kind of feeling like an arm was born. Even if it's not a spirit sword, even if there's no sword origin, I's sword is still enough for me. Xiaohua laughed heartily and waved his hand. The flying sword suddenly turned around and flew into Xiaohua's hand like a small snake that had intelligence. When the flying sword landed in his hand, a kind of sometimes boiling hot and sometimes cold feeling came from his hand, unconsciously causing Xiaohua to frown slightly. What's going on? Xiaohua closed his eyes tightly and carefully savored the sensation. After a long while he muttered, "This coldness seems to be a sharp feeling, and it is transmitted to my skin. And this boiling hot burning feeling doesn't seem to be purely coming from my skin. It feels more like a kind of fear in my heart." Xiaohua suddenly had a kind of enlightenment. This is probably the power of karma that Master and Master's wife talked about. Go. Xiaohua pointed his finger, and the flying sword flew into the air. It was much faster than the flying sword talisman Xiaohua used before. Seeing the flying sword move somewhat clumsily in the air under his control, Xiaohua slightly shook his head. A flying sword talisman is a flying sword talisman. It's really different from a flying sword. I'm afraid that the Dao Sect's flying sword technique is different from the sword cultivator's sword control technique. Unfortunately, I don't know when I'll be able to obtain the sword control technique. Just at this moment, A wave of confusion suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Chapter 1675. Speaking of which, Xiao Hua's eyes suddenly appeared perplexed. His eyes were no longer staring at the flying sword in the air. At this moment, a set of sword controlling technique appeared in Xiao Hua's mind. Countless images and countless words gushed out from unknown places, and were deeply engraved in his memory. Sword playing the world. The bewilderment in Xiao Hua's eyes gradually disappeared, and was replaced by a deep joy. Soon after, he closed his eyes again. After a long while, he still didn't make any movements, but the flying sword in front of him that had stopped long ago suddenly flew again. At this time, its speed was many times faster than before, and its flight path was much more mysterious. Swoosh! While the flying sword was flying, it suddenly turned into two sword lights. The flying swords in these two sword lights were exactly the same. The two flying swords flew for a moment and transformed again. This time it turned into four again. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the entire quiet room actually produced 8 sword lights that continuously danced around Xiao Hua's surroundings. Gather! Xiao Hua shouted. The 8 sword lights converged into one place, and once again turned into a green-red flying sword that stopped in front of him. Hee, this is the true sword controlling technique. The corner of Xiao Hua's mouth rose, and he had a trace of pride. Sword playing the world has 9 levels. I'm currently only at the first level. There are also 9 sword orbs, and there are still 8 that haven't been nurtured. Could it be that in the unseen world, these 9 sword orbs were born for this sword playing the world? If I can really master this sword playing the world and nurture all 9 sword orbs, I'm afraid I can really control the sword under the world. Xiao Hua's gaze looked at the flying sword again and again, and he thought, the sword has a name. My flying sword also needs a name, but I don't know what to call it. Just as this thought appeared, Chasing Dream jumped out of his mind again. Chasing Dream. Xiao Hua slightly frowned. Chasing dreams? Too childish. Thinking about how he was attacked by the heart demon several years ago, Xiao Hua's eyes slightly flashed with a cold light, and he muttered, why don't we call it Chasing Dream? Killing all the nightmares. Thinking here, Xiao Hua's heart jumped for no reason, and an indescribable palpitation rose in his heart. Whoosh whoosh. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to think carefully, the entire quiet room actually made a sound like a tide, and the entire restriction began to shake. A message from a disciple on duty in the library? Xiao Hua was stunned. He glanced at the dream executioner, and opened his mouth. The dream executioner flew into Xiao Hua's mouth, and was kept into his Buddha heart. He continued to burn it with the Tai green qi and infinite karmic fire. When Xiao Hua came out of the quiet room, a middle-stage foundation establishment robust man was standing in front of the door. He looked Xiao Hua up and down and asked, are you Xiao Hua of the Thunderclap Palace? Disciple is indeed Xiao Hua. Greetings to Senior. Xiao Hua bowed in salute. May I know why Senior is looking for this disciple? Your eldest senior brother came to find you. He said it was urgent. The brawny man said, go out and take a look. As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Xiao Hua to answer before his figure flashed slightly, and then a ball of indistinct clouds appeared beneath his feet before it carried him up into the starry sky and vanished. Eldest senior brother? Xiao Hua frowned even more. He knew that in the past 5 years he had only gone to the myriad Thunder Valley a few times, but Helplessness had refused to see him. The only time he had seen Helplessness and Xiangyang was when the Taiqing sect had sent a disciple to ask about the sword cultivators of the Xianjian sect. However, Helplessness had ignored Xiao Hua and had a look of disappointment on his face. This made Xiao Hua's heart go cold. What's the matter this time? It can't be that Master is being merciful and wants to see this good-for-nothing disciple of mine. Xiao Hua laughed self-deprecatingly. The path of cultivation that he had walked was truly shocking, and it was different from the cultivation of ordinary people. There was no reason for him to talk about it with others. This kind of loneliness, this kind of indifference, he could only taste and understand it himself. Xiao Hua placed the jade slip in his hand into the starry sky, then left the library and arrived outside the main hall of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Xiangyang was a disciple of the Thunderclap Palace, and without the Heavenly Thunder Palace's token, he couldn't enter the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Seeing Xiaohua come out, Xiangyang's face relaxed. Eldest senior brother, is master looking for me? Xiaohua smiled and greeted him. Cough cough, Xiangyang coughed and said in a low voice. It's not master looking for you. It's Senior Zhen Qing from the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Senior Zhen? Xiaohua was slightly stunned. At the same time, there was a trace of disappointment in his heart. Then I'll go to the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Xiaohua bowed and said. Let's go, I'll accompany you. Xiangyang said with a smile and pulled Xiaohua's sleeve. Eldest senior brother, your cultivation is more important. I'll go to the Heavenly Thunder Palace myself. Xiaohua knew that Xiangyang had spent too much time in the early stage of foundation establishment. Although he didn't know his exact age, he still used 50 years to reach foundation establishment. In the 200 years of a foundation establishment cultivator's lifespan, he might not be able to cultivate into Jindan. If he couldn't cultivate into Jindan, it would be impossible to extend his lifespan. Therefore, for Xiangyang, every moment was precious. Xiangyang knew what Xiaohua meant and said with a smile. I've encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation these past few days. Even if I cultivate bitterly, I still can't break through. It's better to come out and walk around. Xiaohua also didn't know whether what Xiangyang said was true or not, so he could only nod and follow Xiangyang's hibernating thunder escape. He also flew behind Xiangyang. Not long after Xiaohua left, a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace came out of the main hall. Looking at the direction Xiaohua flew in, he clapped his hand and sent out a thunder sound transmitting talisman, then flew in another direction. After flying for a while, Xiangyang couldn't help but turn his head and ask, Little junior brother, recently, how's your cultivation? Thank you for your concern, eldest senior brother. Everything is normal. Xiaohua smiled and told the truth. Xiangyang naturally didn't think so and said, Actually, when you encounter a bottleneck, it's naturally good to look for ancient books or look at other cultivation methods, but you can't always look at them. Cultivating behind closed doors isn't the way of cultivation. Little junior brother, you should still cultivate in places with abundant spiritual energy like before. Yes, I know. Xiaohua naturally nodded. In addition, your cultivation can't increase at this time. You should still go out and experience more. Maybe you'll encounter an opportunity to reach foundation establishment, just like the Feather Immortal Assembly. Hearing this, Xiaohua's heart moved. Sure enough, Xiangyang said. For disciples who are at the late stage of the 12th layer of qi refining, but can't reach foundation establishment, my Imperial Thunder Sect will give them the opportunity to experience the world every 5 years. If little junior brother feels that you can't make any progress in the Imperial Thunder Sect, you can go out and experience the world. Xiaohua didn't need to experience the world. What he lacked now was time to refine the Fire Essence Flame Crystal, and finish the so-called 18th layer of qi refining as soon as possible, so that he could reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. Yes, thank you for your reminder, eldest senior brother. I will consider it. Xiaohua replied, but his tone was careless. Xiangyang also knew that his little junior brother, who was born as a loose cultivator, had his own ideas and his words might not be effective. He sighed in his heart and clapped his hands, taking out a few invisibility talismans and handing them over. He said, This was refined by your senior sister. Keep it. It'll be useful for your future experience. Looking at the precious invisibility talismans, Xiaohua's heart felt warm. He took them and said, Thank you, senior sister and eldest senior brother. After I meet Senior Zhen, I will take care of the matter of my experience. I definitely won't disappoint senior sister. Good. Xiangyang said with a smile. It's not that senior sister and eldest senior brother are forcing you to go out. After all, you won't make any progress if you stay in the Eastern Ridge and the Book Collection Pavilion. Moreover, you must be careful when you go out to experience the world. Is there any organization for this 5 years of foundation establishment training? Or is there any fixed place in my Imperial Thunder Sect? Xiaohua knew that even if he didn't go, Sun Shu would probably ask him to go. He had promised her at the Feather Immortal Assembly, but at that time, he only thought that he would be able to build his foundation after returning to the Imperial Thunder Sect. He didn't expect that he would reach the 18th layer of the Qi refining realm. This outside experience is different from the Feather Immortal Assembly. You just have to report to your respective Thunder Palace. If there were any senior or junior brothers that they were familiar with, they could go together, and no one would question them. As for the place to experience the world, the Xiaoyu continent is fine. As long as you feel that there's an opportunity to build your foundation, you can go there, Xiang Yang explained. However, before you go out, you still have to consider your own cultivation. If it's too dangerous, it's better not to go. Xiaohua nodded. After flying for a while, he said in a low voice, "What about Master? How has he been recently?" Xiang Yang bit his lip. With a somewhat gloomy expression, he told him what happened a few days ago. "Oh, eldest senior brother came to the Heavenly Thunder Palace a few days ago? That Wang Yunxiao also built his foundation?" Xiaohua was somewhat surprised. That's right. The Heavenly Thunder Palace can't be compared to the Deafening Thunder Palace. Moreover, you're in the book collection pavilion. Ordinary people can't enter. I only asked a warm-hearted senior brother to call you out. Thank you for your trouble, senior brother. Xiaohua was somewhat ashamed. Don't say this. As long as you can build your foundation, it's enough for my myriad Thunder Valley. Xiang Yang regretted saying this. Yes, junior brother knows. Xiaohua smiled as if he didn't take it to heart. The Wang Yunxiao from a few years ago was already not worth mentioning in Xiaohua's eyes. Now that his cultivation had advanced rapidly, even if Wang Yunxiao had already built his foundation, would Xiaohua still care about him? Building his foundation was just an empty title. Alas, Xiang Yang didn't understand. He thought that Xiaohua was the same as him in the past, disheartened and gloomy. Therefore, he stopped talking about cultivation and picked up some other things to talk about. However, Xiang Yang wasn't good at talking. After a few sentences, they talked about cultivation again. In the end, Xiang Yang simply stopped talking. The two of them hurried on their way in silence. Zhen Qing was still in the pavilion at the back of the mountain. She scanned with her divine sense and knew that Xiaohua had come, so she stopped playing the flute. After the disciple who led Xiaohua here left, she said with a smile, "A few days ago, I suddenly remembered something. It was precisely to return the favor at the Feather Immortal Assembly that I sent you a messaging talisman. Unexpectedly, the messaging talisman didn't leave. Presumably, you couldn't receive messages in the Deafening Thunder Palace, so you sent a message to your master. Return a favor?" Xiaohua's eyes turned, and he was secretly delighted. He bowed and said, "Disciple has failed to build his foundation. What's there to be afraid of if my cultivation is delayed for a day or half a day? It's just that disciple didn't come in time. I've made Grandmaster wait for a long time." Chapter 1677. After Xiang Yang and Xiaohua greeted Zhen Qing said that he wanted to return Xiaohua's favor. Xiaohua couldn't help but feel happy. How could a Golden Core Stage Senior's return gift be lacking? Xiaohua said modestly, "Disciple came late. Sorry for making Grandmaster wait for so long. Disciple didn't mean to do that. How could I dare to make Grandmaster owe me a favor?" Zhen Qing didn't put on the airs of a Grandmaster. He waved his sleeve and said with a smile, "What I owe you is what I owe you. No matter what you say, I will return it. I don't dare to refuse a favor from an elder. Thank you for your kindness, Grandmaster." Xiaohua stopped while he was ahead. Zhen Qing glanced at Xiang Yang and transmitted her voice to Xiaohua. "Do you remember that during the Feather Immortal Gathering, when you obtained the sword embryo that was not controlled by divine sense, I said that I had seen something similar?" Xiaohua's heart warmed and he also said, "Grandmaster, disciple, naturally remembers. I didn't expect Grandmaster to still remember after so many years." You don't know how it feels to owe a favor," Zhen Qing said with a smile. "I wanted to give you some benefits after you reached the foundation establishment stage. However, you didn't reach the foundation establishment stage. In these 5 or 6 years, there was no movement. However, fortunately, I found the origin of that thing in these 5 or 6 years. Zhenqing clapped his hand and took out a jade slip and handed it over. Speaking of this thing, it has some history. My master, Daoist Lu Peng, came across it by chance when he was training in the Xiaoyu continent. At that time, I was still young and only listened to it casually. If it wasn't for this strange sword embryo from the Taiqing sect, how could I remember it? Previously, I thought it was something related to our Imperial Thunder sect. After searching for a long time, I found it. Seeing Xiao Hua take the jade slip, Zhenqing said. However, this is something that happened 200 years ago. I can't guarantee that the thing is still there. Ah, 200 years. Xiao Hua was a little shocked. Then he felt even more grateful. Zhenqing was a Golden Core Realm senior. She actually went through so much trouble just because of what she said earlier. She even brought up the matter from 200 years ago. This favor was really too big. Thank you, Grandmaster. Disciple was really scared. Xiao Hua bowed again. These are all illusory things. There's no need to thank me so early. Zhenqing didn't mind at all. He flicked his sleeves and didn't let Xiao Hua thank him. The other things in the jade slip are also some of this old man's experiences. If you have the chance, you can take a look at them carefully. Really, when Xiao Hua heard this, he became even happier. He was already thinking about it in his heart. If it was just a piece of news, Zhenqing wouldn't make such a big fuss. She only needed to send a message. Thus, he released his divine sense and immersed it into the jade slip. It was fine if he didn't read it, but after reading it his face became even more interesting. However, before Xiao Hua could say anything, Zhenqing transmitted her voice to him. You don't have to tell anyone about this. Just take a look for yourself. Yes, disciple understands. Xiao Hua carefully replied and put away the jade slip. Go. Cultivate carefully. This old man thinks highly of you. Zhenqing looked at Xiangyang and said, cultivation is important. However, it also depended on the immortal fate. If there wasn't any immortal fate and you insisted on forcing it, you might not be able to obtain it at all. Your eldest martial brother is a good example. Although he used 50 years to reach the Foundation Establishment realm, he still reached the Foundation Establishment realm. Now he has also reached the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Compared to those who haven't reached the Foundation Establishment realm, and those who are stuck at the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, isn't he 100 times stronger? Yes, disciple understands. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Cultivation is about cultivating the heart. Realms are just the surface. If your heart isn't strong enough, even if you have a realm, it will be difficult for you to progress further. Zhenqing seemed to want to continue, but after saying a few words he smiled and said, these are too profound. They are just some of my experiences. I'm afraid you won't be able to comprehend them at the late stage of the qi refining realm. You're still young, so you should cultivate slowly. Don't be impatient. Thank you, Grandmaster, for your guidance. Go. Zhenqing waved his sleeve and flew into the air, gradually disappearing into the fog. Then, the melodious sound of the flute sounded again. The sound of the flute revealed a kind of relaxed and free feeling. Xiangyang accompanied Xiao Hua out of the Zhenlei Palace. From the beginning to the end he didn't say a word. He only looked at the jade slip given by Zhenqing, and didn't ask about it at all. After the two of them left the Zhenlei Palace and flew for a while, Xiangyang spoke for the first time. Little martial brother, are you going back to the Heavenly Thunder Palace's library? Or are you following me back to the Myriad Thunder Valley to see Master? Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and shook his head. I've already read most of the books in the Heavenly Thunder Palace. There's no need for me to go back this time. As for Master, do you think he'll be willing to see me? Master is also concerned about you. After saying this, Xiangyang couldn't say anything else. On the way to the Zhenlei Palace, he had already said everything he needed to say. He knew Xiao Hua's temper better than anyone else. What he could endure, others might not be able to. Especially this little martial brother of a rogue cultivator background. He usually looked very easygoing, but his bones were full of pride. When faced with Xiao Hua, who kept calling him little brat, He definitely wouldn't be able to calm down. Rather than that, it was better to not see him. I know, Xiao Hua said calmly. I'm going to prepare to go out and travel. While Xiao Hua was speaking, a crimson-red thunder sound transmitting talisman flew over and landed in front of Xiao Hua. Hee, I'm afraid it's Shui from the Sunlei Palace. Xiang Yang hurriedly changed the topic. Master's wife mentioned her a few times. Ever since you came back from the Tai Ching sect, she hasn't come to the Myriad Thunder Valley for more than 5 years. When is she free? Let her come over. Yes, I know. Xiao Hua's face was slightly red. As he answered, he opened the sound-transmitting talisman. When he scanned it with his divine sense, a hesitant expression appeared on his face. What's wrong? Something happened again? Xiang Yang saw this and asked in a low voice. Oh, it's nothing, eldest martial brother. Xiao Hua took out the sound-transmitting talisman and said a few words. Then he raised his hand and sent the sound-transmitting talisman out with a smile. It's a martial sister who went to the Feather Immortal Gathering. She wants to go with me to the Foundation Establishment realm. I've already agreed to this matter. Hearing this, Xiang Yang's face lit up. He clapped his hands and said with a smile. Great, I'm worried that you'll be in danger if you travel alone. With our martial brother. It's a martial sister? Yes, it's Shue's martial sister, Xin Shu. She invited me at the Feather Immortal Gathering, Xiao Hua explained. Oh, so it's Xin Shu. Xiang Yang's face revealed an understanding expression. He nodded deeply and said, Yes, Xin Shu's cultivation and appearance are comparable to Shue's. You should go. Eldest martial brother? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He immediately understood the meaning of these words. But how could he explain such ambiguous words? I know. Xiang Yang waved his hand. You go back and prepare. I'll go back and tell Master's wife about this matter, so that she won't worry. Master's wife? Xiao Hua was even more stunned. His face was slightly embarrassed. Xiang Yang didn't say much. He turned around and flew away using the hibernating thunder escape. Before he left, he said, Little martial brother, before you left, you said that you wanted to send a sound-transmitting talisman to Master. If you've reached the Foundation Establishment realm, you'll return earlier. Foundation Establishment realm. I'm afraid it's not possible within a few years. Xiao Hua thought. Then he smiled and agreed. He also used the Awakening Thunder Escape and flew back to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. Awakening Thunder Escape. No way. Xiang Yang was secretly happy for his little martial brother. He naturally turned around and glanced. He saw Xiao Hua's figure disappearing in the distance. Seeing Xiao Hua's thunder escape, Xiang Yang, who was using the hibernating thunder escape, was so shocked that he almost fell from the sky. Even though he wasn't too clear on what cultivation level the Awakening Lightning Escape was, he knew that his own cultivation level at the middle stage of Foundation Establishment had only just recently succeeded in cultivating the hibernating lightning escape. The Awakening Lightning Escape. As far as he was concerned, it was impossible for him to successfully cultivate it in this lifetime. As for Xiao Hua, how could an aura condensation disciple possibly know it? I must have seen wrongly. Xiang Yang, who had always been honest, couldn't help but doubt his own eyes. He rubbed his eyes and sighed in his heart. He flew up again, but this time, his speed was much slower. Xiao Hua didn't think that his Awakening Thunder Escape would cause such a blow to Xiang Yang. He only felt warm in his heart. While flying, he immersed his divine sense into the jade slip that Zhenqing gave him. Naturally, in the jade slip, Zhenqing's master, Taoist Master Lu Peng, only recorded a small part of another material. The rest was what Zhenqing really left for Xiao Hua. This part of the jade slip was divided into 2 parts. The first part was the most important, accounting for 80%. It was all about the refining and use of magic treasures. Presumably, Zhenqing saw that the cloud-suppressing seal's incantation was incomplete, so she took the trouble to find a suitable incantation for Xiao Hua. As for the other 20%, although there weren't many records, it was the most precious. It was actually Zhenqing's understanding of breaking through to the Foundation Establishment realm. This understanding wasn't much. For Zhenqing, it was just a superficial understanding. But for Xiaohua, it was simply a mountain of gold. This was the understanding of breaking through to the foundation establishment realm, not the understanding of breaking through to the qi refinement realm. For Zhenqing, the understanding of breaking through to the qi refinement realm was too far away. Perhaps she couldn't remember it clearly. Moreover, Xiaohua's master was helpless. Zhenqing taking out the understanding of breaking through to the foundation establishment realm was too incongruous. Therefore, in order to counter Xiaohua's failure to break through to the foundation establishment realm, Zhenqing could only take out the understanding of breaking through to the foundation establishment realm. This was also the reason why Xiaohua was wild with joy when he saw the contents of the jade slip. At the same time, it was also the reason why Zhenqing transmitted a message to Xiaohua and didn't let him spread it outside. Xiaohua gave up on many things and only immersed his divine sense into the jade slip. He pondered over Zhenqing's understanding word by word. The more he pondered over it, the more he felt that every word was like a gem. Every word was like the bottom of his heart. Every word scratched the itch of his cultivation. An indescribable feeling spontaneously arose in his heart. Just as Xiaohua was scratching his head and cheering in his heart, a strong feeling of threat arose from the bottom of his heart, and it forcefully extinguished the lively feeling in his heart. Chapter 1678. Xiaohua immediately stopped his escape technique and floated in midair. His gaze flickered as he looked around the wilderness again and again. "Come out!" Xiaohua shouted angrily, but his divine sense had locked onto a certain place. Clap clap, the sound of palms clapping came from that place, and then a cultivator in a dark Taoist robe flew out from his hiding place. Xiaohua's pupils constricted when he saw that this cultivator was in the early stage of foundation establishment, and didn't hide his appearance. At this time, he already recognized that this cultivator was the foundation establishment cultivator, who coveted him in the eastern mountain range several years ago. As expected, you defeated Xiaohua, the champion of the Feather Immortal Assembly. You truly deserve your reputation. The inexplicable cultivator clapped and laughed. I was confident that my concealment technique was cultivated to a very high level, but you actually still saw through it. Xiaohua looked at him coldly and didn't answer. He was calculating this guy's origin in his mind. What? You actually forgot about etiquette after seeing a foundation establishment senior? A trace of ridicule flashed through the cultivator's eyes. However, this ridicule also revealed a trace of coldness. How could Xiaohua salute? He sneered and said, "Since you're a senior, then you should have the integrity of a senior. What's the reason for hiding to the side and intercepting this junior?" "I intercepted you?" The cultivator laughed and pointed his hand. Xiaohua immediately dodged, afraid that the cultivator would use some kind of technique. If I wanted to make things difficult for you, would I need to waste so much effort?" The cultivator didn't use any kind of technique, and it really seemed to be just a hand gesture. But at this time, Xiaohua's expression suddenly changed. He suddenly raised his head and slightly swept his gaze over the top of his head. His entire body suddenly retreated, and his speed seemed to not be inferior to the speed of flying just now. Ha! The expression of the cultivator in dark clothes also changed greatly. He received a message from someone and knew that Xiaohua might return to the eastern mountain range's medicinal garden, so he set up a formation here in advance. Unfortunately, he was discovered by Xiaohua one step ahead and didn't fall into the formation. He said so much to stall for time, so that his other companion could set up another formation. But he didn't expect that Xiaohua's divine sense would actually be so powerful, discovering the movements of another person. Moreover, Xiaohua's speed was so fast that the dark-clothed cultivator couldn't help but be vigilant. He slapped his forehead and released the pressure of a foundation establishment cultivator. A surge of power immediately pressed down on the distant Xiaohua. Following the release of this cultivator's pressure, the other fat cultivator in the air, where Xiaohua was standing, also revealed an expression of disbelief. He looked at the dark-robed cultivator in surprise and slapped his hand, releasing the same pressure that smashed down like a mountain. In the blink of an eye, Xiaohua had used the lightning escape technique to fly several tens of feet away. Just as he was about to be caught up by the two Foundation establishment cultivators, the pressure from the top of his head firmly suppressed Xiaohua. His entire body couldn't even move. 17th brother. Did this guy just use the awakening lightning escape? The fat cultivator saw that Xiaohua was under his control and asked curiously. The 17th brother was Zhen Hao of the Thunderclap Palace's Swallow Thunder Ridge, and the fat cultivator was Zhen Miao, ranked 15th in Swallow Thunder Ridge. Good 15th brother, it seems to be the case. Zhen Hao was also somewhat perplexed. But that's not very likely, right? Humph, this guy is a genius. Zhen Miao coldly snorted. He's only in the 12th layer of qi refining, yet he can already use the lightning escape technique. Even in the entire Imperial Thunder sect, such a person is rare. Unfortunately, he offended my Swallow Thunder Ridge. While speaking, Zhen Miao waved his hand and a flying sword talisman appeared in his hand. He then waved it, and the flying sword shot like lightning towards Xiaohua, who couldn't move in the slightest under the pressure of the two cultivators. That's all there is to it. Zhen Hao laughed. Fourth senior brother, you speak so highly of this little thief, but in the end, he's only an aura refining junior. Today you and I, two Foundation establishment cultivators, are attacking at the same time. It's like the strong bullying the weak. If it weren't for the fact that we were afraid of being leaked, we would have let you come alone. Zhen Miao's eyes shone with a cold light. His fat face squeezed his eyes into the size of mung beans as he looked at the flying sword talisman that was about to pierce Xiaohua's chest. But just as the two of them decided to have a card up their sleeve, a sudden change occurred. Xiaohua, who was firmly suppressed by the pressure of the two Foundation establishment cultivators, didn't struggle with all his might like they had imagined. Instead, after his initial futile struggle, his face became gloomy and he stared fixedly at the two cultivators, as if he was thinking about something. When the flying sword talisman was about to pierce his chest, a cold light flashed through Xiaohua's eyes. The true qi in his body rapidly circulated, and a layer of faint golden brilliance overflowed from his body. Immediately, Xiaohua's body expanded like a balloon. His two big hands were more than twice as big as before. His right hand reached forward, and the flying sword talisman was caught by his big hand like a swimming fish. With a clang, the flying sword talisman pierced Xiaohua's faint golden hand, and several sparks burst out. Xiaohua didn't seem to be in any pain. Then he clenched his hand, and after a burst of metallic sound, a tattered talisman paper floated down from his hand. Ah! Zhen Miao and Zhen Miao were stunned. They urged their pressure again, wanting to suppress Xiaohua. But at this time, although Xiaohua was afraid of pressure, he was far from being completely suppressed like before. He still had the strength to move. How is this possible? Zhen Miao shook his head in disbelief. He had never seen an aura refining cultivator who wasn't afraid of pressure. This was the difference in realm, the natural restraint of high-grade cultivators over low-grade cultivators. Go. Zhen Miao didn't hesitate and flew away from Zhen Miao's side. He stopped on the other side of Xiaohua, and with a wave of his hand, a wheel-shaped magic tool appeared in the air. This was Zhen Miao's magic tool, the Four Phases Wheel. The Four Phases Wheel had 4 protrusions. As Zhen Miao released them, each protrusion emitted a peculiar brilliance. As it rotated, it smashed towards Xiaohua's faint golden body that was already 6 meters tall. Oh no, this seems to be a kind of divine ability. It's not the expansion of Xiaohua's body. Seeing Zhen Miao throw out the magic tool, Zhen Miao's heart felt a little more at ease. Only after scanning with his divine sense did he realize that Xiaohua's faint golden body was a Dharma idol, not a real body. Moreover, most of the Dharma idol was blurry, with only a faint golden outline. Only the 2 arms and 2 legs could be seen clearly. Go. Xiaohua, who was urging the great strength Vajra Dharma idol, saw the light of the 4 phases while stirring the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and a small vortex formed in the air. He knew that this magic tool was powerful. Without hesitation, the great strength Vajra Dharma idol turned slightly, clenched his left hand into a fist, and met the attack head-on. Bang! With a loud sound, the 4 phases wheel was knocked back, and a piece of Xiaohua's Dharma idol's fist was also cut off. Oh no! Not only was Xiaohua slightly surprised, but Zhen Miao also secretly cursed in his heart. He never thought that his magic tool would be knocked back by Xiaohua. Xiaohua's heart ached even more for the great strength Vajra Dharma idol that he had painstakingly condensed. Then Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He slapped his forehead, and the cloud-suppressing seal appeared in the air. As soon as the cloud-suppressing seal appeared, it immediately showed the power of a magic tool. A buzzing sound immediately filled the air. And along with the noise, the cloud-suppressing seal rapidly grew from a size of 3 inches to a size of 3 meters. All the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the surroundings was attracted to it. And a lot of spiritual qi even formed a ribbon around the cloud-suppressing seal. What a magic tool! Zhen Miao and Zhen Miao praised in their hearts when they saw this. Haha! Since I am here, I naturally have a way to deal with you. It's just a magic tool. Zhen Miao laughed, patted his storage bag, and took out a cloud-like magic tool. He casually threw it into the air. Then, Zhen Miao clenched his right hand into a fist and punched himself in the chest. Poof! A mouthful of blood rushed out and hit the magic tool. The cloud was instantly dyed red, but then the blood entered the magic tool, and it returned to its original white color. Let me show you the 100-layer cloud mountain of my Thunder Swallow Ridge. Zhen Miao shouted loudly, and even called out the name of Thunder Swallow Ridge. He pointed his finger, and a spell was sent into the 100-layer cloud mountain. A huge suction force was generated from the 100-layer cloud mountain. And in an instant, more than half of Zhen Miao's spiritual qi was sucked away. The 100-layer cloud mountain, which had absorbed the spiritual qi, suddenly expanded to a size of several hundred meters. The pure white brilliance was like a real cloud, and it covered the 3 of them. Thunder Swallow Ridge. Xiaohua was slightly shocked. He even called out the name of the 100-layer cloud mountain. Today he must be prepared to die. So while sneering he pointed his finger, and the cloud-suppressing seal whizzed toward Zhen Miao. Emph! At this time, the 3 of them were under the 100-layer cloud mountain. Seeing the cloud-suppressing seal coming down, Zhen Miao sneered and pointed his finger. A white cloud appeared above Zhen Miao's head, blocking the falling cloud-suppressing seal. Poof! The cloud-suppressing seal smashed into the white cloud, and it was as if it fell into cotton. Ha ha ha! Before Xiaohua could react, Zhen Miao was the first to laugh. His gaze swept over Zhen Miao, and that Zhen Miao's face also showed a relaxed expression. He pointed his finger at the 4-phase wheel, and that magic tool spun rapidly. It also made a buzzing sound, and the 4 colors of brilliance mixed together, stirring up the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and flew toward Xiaohua. Xiaohua's face was calm as he stood in the air, and he didn't appear to be surprised. He only looked at the 2 foundation establishment cultivators on his left and right, and thought to himself. He was now an aura-refining cultivator, and his body didn't have any spiritual pressure. The spiritual pressure of 2 foundation establishment cultivators was his nemesis. If he didn't have the Vajra Dharma body, he really wouldn't be able to handle it. Now he could only release his Dharma body to resist the spiritual pressure. Fortunately, the Vajra Dharma body was a Buddhist divine ability, and he didn't need to use too much spiritual qi. Damn it! This young master's cultivation is now at the 15th layer of aura refining, and I've also cultivated the prairie fire cultivation technique to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Why would I be afraid of you? Contempt grew in Xiaohua's heart, and he coldly snorted. He urged the spiritual qi in his body, and pointed his finger at the cloud-suppressing seal. The cloud-suppressing seal produced a powerful suction force, and at the same time it sucked in Xiaohua's spiritual qi. It also swept away all the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the surrounding Tenjiang. Rise Zhen Miao was slightly startled, and he hurriedly chanted an incantation to urge the 100-layer cloud mountain, and the clouds blocking the cloud-suppressing seal became even thicker. Chapter 1679. Contrary to Zhen Ming's expectations, the cloud-suppressing seal not only didn't expand as he expected, but instead seemed to shrink at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it shrank to the size of a foot. Then, as Xiaohua cast a spell, the The cloud-suppressing seal actually broke free from the clouds and whistled towards the four symbols wheel. Humph, an aura-refining disciple. It's already good that you can drive a magic weapon, but you actually dare to collide directly with I. You simply don't know how to write the word death. Zhenhao saw Xiaohua's magic weapon rapidly shrinking, and thought that Xiaohua's magic power was insufficient to maintain the magic weapon. So he shrank it to the size of a foot, wanting to fight to the death with him. While sneering, he sent his magic power into the four symbols wheel to drive the magic weapon, wanting to smash the cloud-suppressing seal away. Pung! A deafening sound rang out. The 1 foot long suppressing cloud seal smashed onto the 3 foot long four phases wheel. The 4 colors of brilliance on the 4 phases wheel suddenly flourished, like sharp swords piercing through the horizon, separately rushing towards the suppressing cloud seal. The suppressing cloud seal's bronze brilliance faintly flowed, forcibly suppressing these brilliances, compressing them inch by inch. By the time the sound rang out, the suppressing cloud seal had already completely suppressed the brilliance of the 4 phases wheel within the artifact. Immediately, while the sound was still lingering in the ears of the 3 people, the brilliance of the 4 symbols wheel suddenly converged, revealing its original body. It was actually smashed by the cloud-suppressing seal that was much smaller than it. Pooh! As the 4 symbols wheel was smashed, Zhenhao, who was not far away, spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale gold. Ah! Zhenming, who was on the other side of Xiaohua, was greatly alarmed. He waved his hand, a fiery red brilliance flashed, and a 1 foot long spear-like magic weapon flew out of his hand, like a meteor flying toward Xiaohua's back. Xiaohua had already released his Buddhist sense. How could he not pay attention to it? He only saw his hand point, and the cloud-suppressing seal buzzed, slightly raised, and smashed toward Zhenhao. At the same time, Xiaohua's mighty Vajra slightly leaned to the side, his left fist clenched at the same time, smashing towards the spear-like magic weapon. Good. Is this still an aura-refining cultivator? Zhenming almost didn't dare to believe his own eyes. Xiaohua was really too ferocious. He was facing 2 foundation establishment cultivators by himself, and at this moment, he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Furthermore, Xiaohua had actually directly used a magic treasure and an unknown Dharma body to forcefully resist a foundation establishment magic artifact. Zhenhao, who was not far away, did not have the time to be as shocked as Zhenming. As soon as the cloud-suppressing seal was lifted, he felt an unparalleled deterrent force from the magic treasure. This deterrent force was more powerful than the pressure of a gold core stage cultivator. It directly pressed into the depths of his soul, making him feel that he could not resist, could not avoid, and could not break free. This Zhenhao didn't even try to resist, but he was already filled with despair. This made his heart tremble. Furthermore, his magical item had been knocked away by the cloud-suppressing seal, so it was temporarily disconnected from his mind. He couldn't control it, so he could only make a final struggle. He waved his hand, took out a dozen yellow talismans, and threw them at the cloud-suppressing seal. Using a yellow talisman against a magic treasure was the biggest joke in the world. As soon as those yellow talismans revealed their power, they were immediately turned into talisman paper under the might of the cloud-suppressing seal. One after another, they fluttered down, just like the endless disdain in Xiaohua's eyes. Just as the traces of blood flowing out of the bronze cloud-suppressing seal were about to smash into Zhenhao's body, a snow-white light burst out from Zhenhao's body. That snow-white light was extremely dazzling. It actually made Xiaohua's eyes twitch, and he couldn't help but squint. Under the suppression of the cloud-suppressing seal, a layer of white armor appeared on Zhenhao's body. The armor was obviously damaged, and could only cover Zhenhao's back. Even so, the talismans flowing on the armor emitted a white light, protecting Zhenhao's entire body. The light blocked the cloud-suppressing seal's front, firmly blocking the bronze light of the cloud-suppressing seal. No matter how the cloud-suppressing seal rolled, it could not fall down. A protective magic artifact. Xiaohua cried out involuntarily. He should have thought about it. Since Zhenming could take out a magic artifact to contend with his cloud-suppressing seal, how could Zhenhao not have one? After all, Thunder Mountain Ridge was the place where Thunderquake Palace refined artifacts. Seeing that his MO cloud armor had successfully blocked the cloud-suppressing seal in midair, Zhenhao couldn't help but let out a long breath. However, his heart didn't seem to relax, because the shock from the cloud-suppressing seal didn't lessen in the slightest because of the Mo cloud armor's appearance. At the same time, Zhen Meng's magic artifact flew behind Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua cried out in alarm and urged his avatar's fist to smash the spear-shaped magic artifact with a bang. An unparalleled force was generated, and Zhen Meng's heart was also shaken. His magic artifact was also sent flying by Xiao Hua's avatar. Too powerful. Zhen Meng controlled the magic artifact with great difficulty. When he controlled the magic artifact to turn around again, he actually wanted to retreat. But just as Zhen Meng thought of retreating, Xiao Hua made another move that puzzled him. Xiao Hua's figure suddenly moved. It really was the awakening thunder escape that he suspected. A shadow that even divine sense couldn't capture flashed by, and Xiao Hua actually flew in front of Zhenhao. Seeing Xiao Hua's sinister smile approaching, Zhenhao retreated in panic as if he had encountered a rogue virgin. But how could Xiao Hua allow him to retreat? He thickened his face and moved his mouth closer. As Xiao Hua's figure approached, his avatar also moved. The pale golden left hand opened and grabbed the tumbling cloud-suppressing seal in midair. Then, with a flip of his hand, he actually smashed the cloud-suppressing seal towards Zhen Meng. As soon as the cloud-suppressing seal flew away, the shock that shocked Zhenhao disappeared. While Zhenhao was puzzled, he didn't hesitate and urged his flying technique to escape from Xiao Hua's eyes. Still want to run? Xiao Hua's face showed an inexplicable smile. As he spoke, he spat out a red and green sword light, which pierced towards Zhenhao's face faster than lightning. Flying sword talisman? Seeing the sword light, Zhenhao's heart lightened for no reason. He knew that this Mo cloud armor was a magic artifact. How could a flying sword talisman pierce through it? However, when the sword light appeared, a kind of shock similar to the cloud-suppressing seal appeared from the depths of his heart. Not good. Before Zhenhao could think of anything else, the green and red sword light pierced the Mo cloud armor. Break! Xiao Hua shouted softly. The white light of the Mo cloud armor was indeed pierced like a bubble by the sword light. The green and red sword light instantly pierced Zhenhao's face. Too fast. Too fast. This was Zhenhao's last bit of emotion. He almost only had the chance to think before his vision turned black. He didn't have any time to resist, even if he took out some useless yellow talismans or other magic artifacts. At the same time that Zhenhao died, the cloud-suppressing seal thrown by Xiao Hua's mighty Vajra avatar also arrived in front of Zhen Meng. At this time, Zhen Meng had just controlled his magic artifact. Seeing the cloud-suppressing seal flying towards him, he also had the same shock as Zhenhao. Without hesitation, he waved his hand and a layer of pure white clouds appeared in front of him. The 100-layer cloud mountain blocked the karmic power of the cloud-suppressing seal. Strange. This is... Zhen Meng and Zhenhao didn't understand why this shock came from their souls. They could only use the 100-layer cloud mountain's power to protect themselves. I'm afraid it's time to retreat. Zhen Meng sighed in his heart. He raised his eyes to look at Zhenhao. As a result, a shocking scene appeared. Because Xiao Hua was tall and thin, blocking Zhenhao, Zhen Meng couldn't clearly see what happened over there. However, Zhenhao's floating corpse and Xiao Hua's sudden turn told him that an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator from Swallow Thunder Ridge had been killed by a late-stage Qi refining disciple from Myriad Thunder Valley. This Zhen Meng was slightly stunned. He didn't have time to think anymore. He didn't have time to control his magic artifact. He urged his body to use the flight technique to escape. But just as he was about to run, the cloud-suppressing seal had already smashed in front of him. The cloud-suppressing seal was blocked by the 100-layer cloud mountain before. This time, Zhen Meng didn't dare to be careless. When he turned around, he still pointed his finger. Magic power flowed everywhere, and another layer of white clouds appeared in front of him to block. Puff puff puff. 3 or 4 muffled sounds rang out. The cloud-suppressing seal that was blocked just now was now like a hot knife through butter. In an instant, it pierced through many clouds and fiercely appeared on Zhen Meng's back. This is bad. Zhen Meng's face was ashen. His heart was like dead ashes. Even his magic treasure, the 100-layer cloud mountain, was broken. How could his body's defense resist? Sure enough, before the cloud-suppressing seal could reach him, a burst of brilliance flashed on Junmeng's body. All of his defenses were crushed. Puff! The cloud-suppressing seal lightly hit Junmeng's back. The sound was extremely soft, and the force wasn't strong either. It was only a little bit stronger than a lover's caress. But it was this kind of force that actually shattered Junmeng's soul. Junmeng's body was like a fluttering autumn leaf, helplessly floating down. Few seeing that Junmeng was also struck down by the cloud-suppressing seal. Xiaohua let out a long sigh. His face suddenly turned dark red. Without thinking, he hurriedly withdrew the mighty Vajradharma into his body. He pointed his finger, and the cloud-suppressing seal flew above his head to protect him. Then he sat down cross-legged and activated the Prairie Fire mental cultivation method. The true energy in his meridians began to flow along them. After the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua's complexion slightly improved. But Xiaohua didn't dare to delay any longer. He released his Buddhist awareness. Seeing that there were no more movements around him, he waved his hand and put away the cloud-suppressing seal. Then he landed on the ground and collected Junmeng and Junhao's storage pouches and magic treasures. He used the true Samadhi fire to destroy their corpses. Then he flew into the air and prepared to fly towards the eastern ridge. But after flying for a few hundred feet, Xiaohua stopped again. He lowered his head and looked for a long time. Then he landed on the small mountain below and pondered for a while. After a few hand seals, a few formation flags and a formation plate appeared at the mountain stream. To deal with a chi refining disciple like me, you still need to set up a formation? You really don't have enough shame. Xiaohua sneered. With a wave of his hand, many things were stored into the space. Then he flew into the air. At the same time, outside of a secret hall within the Thunderclap Palace, a bright light suddenly flashed at the entrance of the hall. A gold core stage cultivator frowned as he revealed himself. He looked at the hall in front of him and whispered, "Which disciple is this? There are actually people who have lost their lives outside." Chapter 1680. Xiaohua flew back to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden, but he didn't dare to be distracted. Not only did he release his divine sense, but he also released his Buddhist sense from time to time, for fear of encountering another hidden formation. Although the life and death battle just now seemed very short, it was incomparably dangerous. Even now, Xiaohua's heart was still thumping wildly. Those were two early Foundation establishment seniors. He really didn't expect that he would be able to kill them without any mishap. While his heart was beating fast, Xiaohua also felt an inexplicable sense of ecstasy. He had just reached the 15th layer of Qi refining. If he really reached the 18th layer of Qi refining, and then entered Foundation establishment, would he be able to kill late Foundation establishment cultivators? Naturally, Xiaohua couldn't help but think with lingering fear. The pressure of a Foundation establishment cultivator is too strong. Qi refining disciples are definitely not their match, and late Foundation establishment cultivators are even more so. Even if I have the great strength Vajradharma body, and can resist the pressure, I'm afraid it won't work against late Foundation establishment cultivators. Moreover, in the fight just now, my magic power was also exhausted. It seems, the quality of my true Qi is still inferior to true essence. Even if I reach the 18th layer of Qi refining, it still can't compare to the true essence of a late Foundation establishment cultivator. Of course, I don't know what true essence is like after Foundation establishment. Furthermore, the reason why I was able to kill those two Foundation establishment cultivators from Swallow Thunder Ridge was mainly because of the cloud-suppressing seal and the Dream Slayer. After 5 years of tempering, the cloud-suppressing seal is a lot more powerful than before, especially after condensing. Its power is even greater, catching them off guard. The Dream Executor is even more out of this young master's expectations. The immeasurable karmic fire and Tai green Qi at the same time really are incomparably sharp. After flying for more than 2 hours, Xiaohua arrived at the Eastern Ridge. After checking that there were no flaws in the formation, he opened it and went in. Then he checked the herb garden again. activated the greenly fire formation, and returned to his immortal's cave with peace of mind. Zhen Ming and Zhen Hao had a lot of things in their storage bags. Not only were there spirit dawn and spirit stones, there were also a lot of refining materials. Xiaohua didn't hesitate to put all of them into his space. Then he picked up a few jade slips and checked them one by one. After Xiaohua finished reading through these jade slips, a faint smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. With a shake of his hand, he shot out a few strands of Samadhi True Flame, burning the 2 storage pouches, as well as the tokens and other items that he did not take out from the storage pouches. He said with a smile, 2 ruffians from Swallow Thunder Ridge actually had the intention to kill me. I'm afraid you guys wouldn't have thought of it, right? You guys just gave me the refining method for nothing. I was just thinking about how to refine the sword embryo, and now you're giving me the manual. I really don't know how to thank all of you. When he thought up to here, Xiaohua's heart jolted, and his Buddhist consciousness swept through the heart of the Buddha's relic. Sure enough, the boundless karmic fire within it was slightly exuberant, and it was precisely the karmic fire from killing the 2 of them. Since this immeasurable hellfire is my karma, I'm afraid it has other uses other than tempering spiritual swords. I've read so many ancient books in the library, but why haven't I seen any records of the Buddhist sect? There's such a karmic fire within the Buddha's relic. If I don't take precautions, maybe I'll be burned by it. Thinking about Zhen Hao and Zhen Xing's helpless appearance under the 2 magic treasures, Xiaohua knew how powerful the immeasurable hellfire was. Naturally, he had to make plans for himself first. I forgot that Zhen Xia and Qin Mingwei both went to the Buddhist sect in advance, and I haven't checked their jade slips. Could it be? However, Qin Mingwei's storage pouch was burned, and not a single jade slip was left behind. I'm afraid it won't be easy. Thinking up to here, Xiaohua took out the jade slips he obtained from Zhen Xia. After looking through these jade slips, Xiaohua's eyes revealed a trace of joy. It turned out that not only did Qin Mingwei find the contents of the Buddhist sect's ruins, Zhen Xia had also obtained them, and the records were very detailed. There were several layers of the ruins, and what kind of restrictions there were in each layer. If it weren't for the fact that the location of the Buddhist sect's ruins was not recorded in this jade slip, Xiaohua would have been able to enter with this jade slip. This is strange. Since Zhen Xia also had this thing, how could he fall into Qin Mingwei's trap? Xiaohua scratched his head and said inwardly, I'm afraid he only found it later? Xiaohua's thought was wrong. This jade slip originally belonged to Qin Mingwei, but the 2 of them obtained the exquisite derivation pagoda in the Buddhist sect's ruins. Since the exquisite derivation pagoda was handed over to Qin Mingwei for safekeeping, this jade slip naturally fell into Zhen Xia's hands. As for why the Buddhist sect's ruins were not recorded, Zhen Xia and Qin Mingwei had already died, so Xiaohua didn't have a place to ask. Forget it, with this thing, this young master actually has some confidence in the Buddhist sect's ruins. If Senior Hanju really wants me to go there, my courage will also increase by a bit. Xiaohua smiled as he put away the jade slip, preparing to properly memorize it if he had the opportunity in the future. At this time, it was still early before the appointed time, so Xiaohua didn't go to the Heavenly Thunder Palace's library. On one hand, he continued to refine the fire essence flame crystal, but on the other hand he took out the chi refining jade slips from the space. From easy to difficult, he looked through them bit by bit. Refining tools was similar to refining pills, but different materials were condensed together using true fire. Of course, compared to refining pills, refining tools was different. Refining pills used true fire to refine pills was a slow fire, condensing the fine into the long, tempering out the impurities in the medicinal herbs. Then, with pill techniques, using the principles of monarch and minister, yin and yang, the different medicinal liquids were condensed into pills. This process was very mysterious, somewhat similar to the chi refining, foundation establishment, and core formation of cultivators. Therefore, it was also the most difficult type of refining. Refining tools, on the other hand, used martial fire to refine. It paid particular attention to fierceness and roughness, refining out the impurities in the chi refining materials, improving the quality of the materials. Then, just like refining pills, all kinds of materials were condensed together to condense magic tools. Among them, the materials, the method of condensing, and the embedded array were the key to the success of the magic tool. At the same time, it was also the foundation of the difference in quality. The same materials in the hands of different refiners could be divided into several grades, and could even be divided into magic tools and magic treasures. Of course, Xiaohua wasn't preparing to refine tools. What he was thinking was only how to repair damaged magic treasures, and how to successfully refine the sword embryo. Xiaohua originally thought that Sun Xu's message would come again very soon. But who would have thought that half a year would quickly pass, and Xiaohua's cultivation would enter the early stage of the 16th layer of the qi refining realm without any disturbances, and Sun Xu also didn't send any more messages. Could it be that senior sister Sun Xu has changed her mind again? Xiaohua sat upright on the cloud bed in the cave, stretched his waist, and moved his muscles and bones, very satisfied as he thought to himself. The progress of his cultivation was completely dependent on the fire essence flame crystal, and it didn't matter much whether he went out to gain experience or not. If it wasn't for the fact that he had already promised someone at the Feather Immortal Gathering, he wouldn't have let go of the good time to cultivate. After resting for a moment, Xiaohua flew out of the cave and looked around. At this time, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the eastern mountain range was even more tyrannical. The fire-type spiritual qi flowed wantonly, as if it was filled with violent emotions. Even the climate was somewhat hot, and many spiritual herbs had withered. Sai, what exactly is going on here? Xiaohua squatted down and looked at a withered spiritual herb. He thought helplessly. This is obviously because too much fire-type spiritual qi was poured in, and the water-type spiritual qi was insufficient. But why wasn't it so powerful 5 years ago? Then Xiaohua's heart shook. Could it be because of the fire essence flame crystal? But he immediately denied it. He was very clear that he had refined the fire essence flame crystal twice in the eastern mountain range, and every time, he had absorbed all the flames derived from the fire essence flame crystal into his body. This absorption was not controlled by him. His physical body, meridians, and bones were all actively absorbing the spiritual qi, leaving him only 10 to 20% for cultivation. No wonder no one dares to come here. This kind of tyrannical spiritual qi of heaven and earth, no one can smoothly absorb it into their body. They can't cultivate qi, and they can't even build their foundation. Xiaohua straightened up, and his Buddhist awareness swept out. After observing for a long time, his expression changed slightly, and his figure floated up, flying towards a place where the fire-type spiritual qi was the most unstable. This is the place where I used the fire essence flame crystal that day. Xiaohua stopped and looked at the traces of his earlier melting on the mountain, and the destruction he had caused. He thought very strangely. Then Xiaohua clapped his hands, and the cloud-suppressing seal was used again. With a bang, it smashed into the ground, and the mountain within a radius of 1 zhang caved in, completely destroying the traces of the flames. After putting away the magic treasure, Xiaohua extended his Buddhist awareness and looked underground. Unfortunately, even when he used his Buddhist awareness to its limit, there were still no clues. Strange, Xiaohua put away his Buddhist awareness, but he didn't know that about 1,000 zhang underground, the collapsed space was wrapped in melted liquid, quietly staying underground. It was unknown how many zhang it had floated up compared to before, and about 100 zhang underground. There was also a layer of formation that Xiaohua's Buddhist awareness could not detect, covering the entire eastern mountain range. Then Xiaohua simply didn't go back to his cave. He found a place to sit down and began to cultivate. Another 10 days passed like this. Xiaohua suddenly opened his eyes, knowing that there was movement outside the formation. He used the token to open the formation, and 2 crimson-red messaging talismans flew in. Both came from Sun Lei Palace. One was from Sun Xu, and the other was naturally from Shueshui. Xiaohua crushed Shueshui's messaging talisman, and Shueshui's resentful voice came from it. It turned out that Shueshui knew there was a chance to build her foundation this time, but she didn't know whether Xiaohua would go or not. She was also afraid of distracting Xiaohua and delaying his cultivation, so she didn't dare to rashly send a message. Moreover, a few years ago, the messaging talismans she sent to Xiaohua often couldn't be sent, so she didn't send one. Until today, when she received her master's order to go into seclusion to cultivate, she heard from Sun Shu that Xiao Hua agreed to go with them, so she sent a message. Xue Xue's words were full of exhortations, and she didn't complain in the slightest, but Xiao Hua still felt uneasy. He explained the whole story clearly, and only said that he originally didn't have any plans. He didn't expect that he would fail to build his foundation, so he could only accompany Sun Shu and send out the messaging talisman. Sun Shu's message was simple. He only said that after 3 days, they would meet at Sky Thunder Peak. There wasn't a single extra word. After replying to Sun Shu's message, Xiao Hua thought for a moment, and decided to go to Myriad Thunder Valley to bid farewell to his master. Thus, he sealed the formation of the Eastern Mountain Range Medicine Garden, and flew to Myriad Thunder Valley. Chapter 1681. On Sky Thunder Peak, Xiao Hua watched as the aura-refining disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect left the mountain gate not far from him in groups or by themselves. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. Foundation establishment. Alas, only foundation establishment can truly set foot on the path of cultivation. Aura refining is nothing more than wandering outside the door of cultivation. Who knows how many cultivators there are on this Xiaoyu continent, but how many of them can build their foundation? Think about those individual cultivators. Think about how the heavens abandoned them in the past. Everyone has an unyielding story. Everyone has a legend of resistance. However, the Tao of Heaven is so cruel. Even if you work hard, even if you pay with your life, you may not necessarily gain anything. The Tao of Heaven rewards the diligent, but immortal fate is hard to find. Alas, if you can't build your foundation, if you can't condense your gold core, all your painstaking cultivation, all your efforts, will turn into flowing water, covered by the vicissitudes of time. Xiao Hua watched the many cultivators leave. His heart was filled with sorrow, and he thought of the matter in Myriad Thunder Valley a few days ago. As Xiao Hua expected, Wuxia wasn't in Myriad Thunder Valley's Immortal's Cave. Even though Master's wife Zhuo Minghui sent him a Thunderlight sound-transmitting talisman, Wuxia still didn't reply, not even a single word. Zhuo Minghui said Wuxia was busy and didn't have time, but how could Xiao Hua not know Wuxian's thoughts? Although he said he didn't care, he still felt some regret in his heart. Immediately after, Xiao Hua stayed in Xiangyang's Immortal's Cave for a few days. Xiangyang and Yan Qinglian reminded him of some matters regarding the experiential learning. There were many matters that were repeated over and over again for fear that Xiao Hua wouldn't remember. When Zhuo Minghui found out that Xiao Hua went out with Sun Shu, an indescribable smile appeared on her face, making Xiao Hua look really embarrassed. He wanted to explain something, but he didn't know where to start, so he simply ignored her. It was only a few hours ago that Xiao Hua bid farewell to Xiangyang. After obtaining some medicinal pills and reporting to Thunder Palace, he hurriedly rushed over to Sky Thunder Peak. He originally thought that he was already late, but after waiting for a long time, Sun Shu still hadn't arrived. Could it be that something happened again? Xiao Hua was somewhat impatient. He was standing at the side of the Crimson Road on Sky Thunder Peak. Many aura-refining disciples were passing by in front of him. This was a very normal thing, but Xiao Hua didn't expect that his current reputation was actually not any worse than Xiangyang's. Out of the 10 disciples who walked past him, 4 or 5 of them looked at him with contempt, while the other 5 or 6 looked at him with pity and sympathy. It was even to the extent that some disciples were gesticulating and saying in low voices, "Look, that's Xiao Hua that was renowned throughout Dawn Rain Continent during the last Feather Immortal meet. Do you know? At that time he was incomparably awe-inspiring." He forced a Great Circle Qi Refinement disciple of the Huanhua sect to enter the Foundation establishment stage, and took one of the Taiqing sect's treasures for himself. Such a famous person started building his foundation as soon as he came back from the Feather Immortal Assembly. In the end, Heavenly Law bumped into a knot, and foundation establishment failed. Yes, I know. It's him who made the #1 beauty of the Huanhua sect, Fairy Hongxia, and her senior brother fall out. The two of them joined forces to force that unlucky guy out of the Feather Immortal Assembly. Look at this guy. He doesn't have any grand appearance. He's much worse than I. How did he enter the eyes of a beauty? You guys still don't know. It was actually the observing disciple of the Thunder Palace who said that the signs of this guy building his foundation that day were very frightening. They weren't inferior to the signs of core formation at all. That disciple was scared to death. He had never seen such a scene before. But the moment he built his foundation, the signs suddenly disappeared. It disappeared in a very strange way. He's a loose cultivator. When he first entered my Imperial Thunder sect, he already practiced 4 or 5 cultivation methods. Even if this kind of disciple's magic power is heavenly, it's impossible for him to build his foundation. Motherfucker, Xiaohua's sword-like eyebrows rose as he thought to himself. Is there a need for this? What does it have to do with you whether I build my foundation or not? How can you little sparrows understand my lofty ambitions? Aren't you also not building your foundation? Is there a need for the pot calling the kettle black? Xiaohua. A very unfamiliar voice rang out from behind Xiaohua. When Xiaohua turned around to look, a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator walked down from the Sky Thunder Peak. Xiaohua stared blankly, but he didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed in greeting. Disciple Xiaohua greets Martial Uncle. What business does Martial Uncle have? You don't recognize me? That cultivator had a fair and clean face and was slightly short. He was more than a head taller than Xiaohua. His eyes looked at Xiaohua as he asked coldly. Xiaohua stared blankly. He carefully looked at that cultivator's face and still shook his head. Forgive me for my poor eyesight, but I really don't recognize Senior. I'm a disciple of Swallow Thunder Ridge. Last time when you came to the Thunder Palace with Xiangyang, I saw you. Swallow Thunder Ridge? When Xiaohua heard this, his heart shrunk. However, the expression on his face didn't change in the slightest. He smiled apologetically and said, So it's Martial Uncle from Swallow Thunder Ridge. The last time I went to the Thunder Palace with eldest senior brother was already many years ago. Moreover, there were many seniors from Swallow Thunder Ridge that day. I really don't remember many. Senior, please bestow me a name. I'm Zhen Yihong. That cultivator stared straight at Xiaohua. He kept looking at Xiaohua's eyes as if he wanted to see something. Xiaohua naturally didn't back down. He very innocently bowed. Disciple greets Martial Uncle Zhen. If you're not looking for me, then why are you looking for me? What's the matter? Naturally, I'm asking if you've seen the 2 missing disciples of my Swallow Thunder Ridge. Zhen Yihong suddenly sped up his speech. 2 missing disciples of Swallow Thunder Ridge? Xiaohua's face turned cold. He looked left and right and said in a low voice, Martial Uncle Zhen, when did this happen? I've been standing here for 2 hours. What do the 2 missing disciples of Swallow Thunder Ridge look like? It's possible that I've seen them. Could it be that the other sects are making some moves against my Imperial Thunder sect? If that's the case, I'd better inform the sect master as soon as possible. With so many aura refining disciples going out to gain experience, I'm afraid they've fallen into someone else's trap. Cunning. I'm asking about Zhen Hao and Zhen Ming. Zhen Yihong's expression suddenly changed. He released his pressure and directly pressed down on Xiaohua. Ah? Xiaohua's face turned pale. He hurriedly raised his hands and waved them, shouting with all his might. Martial Uncle Zhen. Martial Uncle Zhen. Unfortunately, under the pressure of a middle foundation establishment cultivator, Xiaohua, a late 12th layer aura refining cultivator, didn't seem to have any power to resist. Even waving his hands was difficult. Similarly, there were still many aura refining disciples on the mountain path at the foot of Sky Thunder Peak. When Zhen Yihong released his pressure, the nearby disciples also felt it. They were all like Xiaohua. Their faces were pale, and they stood blankly on the mountain path. There were even a few whose cultivation levels weren't high enough, and directly collapsed on the ground. I'll kill you right now. I don't care if you've seen my 2 junior brothers or not. Zhen Yihong's face revealed a ferocious expression. His hands formed a seal, and the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was pulled, smashing towards Xiaohua. Looking at the murderous aura in Zhen Yihong's eyes, Xiaohua's eyes narrowed. His mind raced. Zhen Yihong's pressure was heavy, but if he released the diamond-strength Dharma body, he might be able to resist. However, if he did so, he would be exposed. At this moment, countless aura-refining disciples on Sky Thunder Peak were watching. However, if he didn't resist, Zhen Yihong might really kill him. How could the life of an aura-refining disciple, especially one who failed to enter the Foundation Establishment realm, be feared by a Foundation Establishment cultivator? Forget it. Since Master doesn't like me, why should I stay in the Imperial Thunder Sect? If I'm going to be killed like this, I might as well take the risk, Xiaohua thought. His eyes flashed coldly, and his arms moved slightly. He was about to activate the Diamond Strength Dharma body. In such a critical moment, the only thing he could think of was to save his own life first. Xiaohua, another horrified voice sounded in the distance. It was Sun Shu, and there were two other voices shouting along with him. Hey, where did this scoundrel come from? How dare he bully the weak on Sky Thunder Peak? How dare he bully a disciple of my myriad Thunder Valley? At the same time, Xiaohua's familiar voice rang out from afar. Immediately after, the pressure of a late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator surged from afar, completely surrounding Zhen Yihong. Ah! Zhen Yihong saw that Xiaohua wanted to move, and his eyes showed a hint of joy. However, when he sensed the late Foundation Establishment cultivator's pressure, his expression changed greatly. He quickly withdrew the pressure and resisted with all his strength. When the two forces collided, a hurricane was set off. Not only were the rocks on the mountain path rolling, but many aura-refining disciples were also unable to stand steadily. Senior Martial Brother, how could Zhen Yihong's Middle Foundation Establishment cultivator resist the late Foundation Establishment cultivator's pressure? After resisting for a moment, he was mercilessly suppressed. Then a mountain-like weight directly pressed him down on the mountain path. Zhen Yihong felt a chill in his heart, and he couldn't help but shout. Zhen Yihong's figure gradually appeared on the mountain path in the distance. Master Xiaohua couldn't help but shout in his heart. Zhen Yihong didn't seem to see Xiaohua. He walked straight to Zhen Yihong and coldly looked at Zhen Yihong, who was sitting on the ground and struggling to resist. He sneered and said, Junior Martial Brother Zhen, how can a Foundation Establishment cultivator be so filthy? You actually attacked a disciple of my myriad Thunder Valley in front of so many aura-refining disciples who went out to gain experience? Don't talk about bullying the weak. If others saw this, wouldn't they say that my Lightning Palace disciples are ignorant? Senior Martial Brother Zhen Yihong. Please withdraw your pressure, Zhen Yihong said with a pale face. He seemed to be very afraid of Zhen Yihong's pressure. Why would I withdraw it? Why didn't you think about it when you released your pressure? Zhen Yihong said that, but when he saw the countless disciples lying on the ground around him, he withdrew his pressure a little. Zhen Yihong's face turned for the better. He rolled his eyes and said with an apologetic smile, I was just being kind. Damn it, you wanted to kill my myriad Thunder Valley disciple, and you were being kind. Zhen Yihong said with a smile. Senior Martial Brother Zhen Yihong, how could that be? I was just testing Xiaohua. Zhen Yihong said with a smile. How could I possibly kill an aura-refining disciple on Sky Thunder Peak? I just sent Junior Martial Brother out to gain experience, and saw Xiaohua waiting here. Moreover, Senior Martial Brother didn't come to send me off, so I came to take a look and give him a warning while I was at it. Going out to gain experience isn't like cultivating in the lightning controlling sect. You can encounter any kind of danger. If I, as their teacher, don't give them a lot of guidance, how would they know? Chapter 1682. Of course I'll be the one to warn my disciple. It's not your turn to worry. Damn it, I'll also warn you on behalf of Martial Uncle Jinjia, and let you know what it means to bully the weak. Helplessness glared at him and said with a smile. However, we're both in the Foundation Establishment stage, so I won't be bullying you. As he spoke, he helplessly released his pressure once more. There seemed to be bursts of heavenly thunder within that pressure, and that pressure caused Zhen Yihong to tremble with fear. His body involuntarily trembled, and he was in an even more sorry state than Xiaohua just now. In a hurry, Zhen Yihong couldn't care less about losing face in front of the disciples. He slapped his hand and took out a magic tool from his storage bag. He urged his magic power to shine in all directions, trying to resist helplessness's spiritual pressure. Unexpectedly, just as Zhen Yihong was about to activate his magic tool and pour all of his magic power into it to resist, the pressure suddenly disappeared. Zhen Yihong was caught off guard, and his magic tool suddenly went out of control. A brilliant light swept past and unexpectedly rushed towards the aura-refining disciples sitting on the ground around Zhen Yihong. This is bad. Seeing this, Zhen Yihong's pale face lost even more color. He tried his best to control the magic tool and quickly withdrew his magic power. Alas! This child. Not only is he bullying the weak, but he also doesn't know how to respect the old and love the young. I was just saying. Do you really think I'll teach you a lesson? Do you really want to make a fool of yourself? You're still a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Look at you, you actually used a magic tool. You don't have the slightest bit of compassion. Not to mention hurting the disciples, even the flowers and plants on Sky Thunder Peak are not appropriate. Helplessness suddenly smiled, and the anger on his face disappeared. He stretched out his hand and easily took back the magic tool that was attacking the disciples, cutting off the connection between the magic tool and Zhen Yihong. Zhen Yihong was trying his best to control the magic tool, but this sudden cutoff made him feel as if he had punched the void. Not only did he lose control of his spiritual sense, but his magic power also rushed to his meridians like a tide, and he lost control even more. Pooh! Zhen Yihong spat out a mouthful of blood. His meridians were damaged. However, he was a foundation establishment cultivator after all. Under the activation of his mental cultivation method, he immediately stabilized his state of mind. The true essence in his meridians flowed, and in the blink of an eye, he controlled his magic power. When he helplessly saw that Zhen Yihong was injured, a faint smile appeared on his face. He waved his hand and the magic treasure gently floated before Zhen Yihong. He bitterly said, "Junior martial brother Zhen, you're not young anymore. Why are you so easily angered? Take it. I'm just afraid that your magic tool will injure aura-refining disciples." Look at you. Do you think I want to take your magic tool? Even if you beat this old man to death, this old man will never bully the weak. You. Zhen Yihong was truly angry, but when he looked at Xiaohua's calm expression, Xiaohua's gloating expression, Sun Shu and the others who were walking over from afar and didn't dare to approach, and the disciples with different expressions, he flicked his sleeve and put away his magic tool. He coldly glanced at Xiaohua again, then quickly walked up Sky Thunder Peak. "Master." Xiaohua's face was full of smiles. He quickly walked over and bowed. I just happened to pass by." Helplessly turned around and scolded coldly. "That's why I blocked it for you. Look, if you don't build your foundation, an aura-refining disciple is just a fly in the eyes of a foundation establishment cultivator. They can be destroyed with a wave of their hand. This time, if you can't build your foundation, don't come back." He didn't wait for Xiaohua to say a second word and turned around to leave. Xiaohua straightened up and bit his lip. Looking at Helplessness's back, his eyes flickered. "Greetings, martial uncle Helplessness." When Helplessness passed by Sun Shu, Qian Diheng, and Kuan Fian hurriedly bowed. And Helplessness flicked his sleeve, took out a storage pouch and threw it to Sun Shu, saying, "Be careful on the way." Disciple understands. Sun Shu was obviously stunned by Helplessness's storage pouch. He didn't know whether he should accept it or not. He still wanted to say something. Qian Diheng hurriedly pulled Sun Shu's sleeve and cupped his hands, saying, "Many thanks for martial uncle's good intentions." And Helplessness responded indifferently and quickly walked away. When he was far away from the mountain path, he used the hibernating thunder escape and flew away. From beginning to end, he didn't even look at Xiaohua. Sun Shu and the other two quickly walked down. When they arrived in front of Xiaohua, Xiaohua raised his head, still looking at Helplessness's disappearing figure. The aura-refining disciples around him who were frightened had already crawled up. Not a single one was left. The disciples who followed behind all had fear on their faces and stayed far away. "Junior martial brother Xiao," Sun Shu called in a low voice, pulling Xiaohua's gaze back from the distance. Haha, Xiaohua, we meet again. Qian Diheng was far more affectionate than Sun Shu. He stepped forward and put his arm around Xiaohua's neck, calling out. Kuan Fian's eyes flickered. He cupped his hands, saying, Greetings, junior martial brother Xiao. Xiaohua's expression was strange. He slightly frowned and said with a smile, Junior greets senior martial sisters and senior martial brothers. Then, without leaving a trace, he brushed away Qian Diheng's arm and said with a smile, Senior martial brother Qian also advanced to the late stage of the 12th layer of the aura refining realm. Congratulations. Haha, you've already built your foundation once. I'm just at the late stage of the 12th layer of the aura refining realm. What's there to congratulate? Qian Diheng said with a laugh, not minding it at all. Sun Shu's expression slightly changed. He carefully looked at Xiaohua's expression. Xiaohua's face was completely calm. He glanced around and said, Senior martial brother Qian and senior martial sister Kuan. Where are you going to train? Sun Shu clenched his silver teeth and said in a low voice, Junior martial brother Xiao, junior martial brother Qian, and senior martial sister Kuan are also coming with us. Ha! Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, Senior martial sister Sun, didn't you say it was just the two of us? Why did you suddenly change your mind? You also didn't mention it in your summoning talisman, right? When I sent you the summoning talisman, I indeed only planned to go with junior martial brother Qian. Sun Shu looked left and right. There were still many disciples going down the mountain. Sun Shu had no choice but to transmit her voice. But later on things changed. I had no choice but to change my mind. Moreover, junior martial brother Qian and senior martial sister Kuan are disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace and the Earthly Thunder Palace. You know them both. That place, they've also heard of it. It's just that everyone doesn't have absolute strength, so they don't dare to go. They were also against it at first, but when they heard that junior martial brother Xiao was going, they decided to go. Besides, there are still many people there. It's safer there. Junior martial brother Xiao, you won't not go, right? Sun Shu said in the end. There was actually a hint of pleading in her voice. Hee, Xiaohua, you won't turn your back on senior martial brother, right? Qian Diheng had a smile on his face. He stretched out his hand and took the storage bag that senior martial brother Qian Diheng handed to her from Sun Shu. He said with a smile, Look, senior martial brother Qian Diheng entrusted you to us. If you don't go, this storage bag will be prepared for nothing. Senior martial brother Qian Diheng's efforts will also be wasted. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.